In this ninja world, I'm the one in charge now. Uzumaki Naraku. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251. I will definitely change my mind. After hearing Obito's words, Kakuzu, who was wrapped in black threads all over his body, did not hesitate at all. He turned around and ran in the other direction. It can be seen that as he retreated, he was wrapped in black threads and was still trying to absorb something. Things are the same point after a while. He regained his original human body. Damn it, not only did I destroy 4 hearts this time, but I almost died here. Kakuzu cursed in his mind. It seems we have to find a way to make some heart inventories, he thought in his mind. On the other side, after Kakuzu left here, the white Zetsu clone also controlled Rasa's body and left with the broken hidden point. Perhaps because of his immortality, Hidden's condition seemed a little better than before, and the vicious bullet wound on his abdomen had begun to slowly heal. TSK, 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 you really have an admirable physique. Beija let out a chuckle, and then he turned his head and looked at Obito beside him. I'll leave this to you. After saying this, his body slowly dived into the ground point. At this time, only Naraku and Obito were left on the field. As for Konan, she took the opportunity to slip away when Obito and the others first appeared. It's in a secret cave nearby. Nagato, who was sitting on the flower chair, had a gloomy expression. Like Naraku, he had the pure blood of the Zangara clan and also mastered the powerful sensing technique of Kaguya's inner eye. Although they were a bit far away, he still clearly sensed the powerful energy contained in Naraku and Obito, which was no worse than him. Nagato turned his head and looked at the several black tubes connected to his body. A complex color flashed in his eyes. As one of the founders and leader of Akatsuki, Nagato knows very well that today's Akatsuki organization is a group of desperados. The reason why they seem to obey his orders now is just because they are afraid of his power. But once someone else in the organization becomes more powerful than him, his position as leader may be in jeopardy. Especially the leaders who dress up as masked men. In today's Akatsuki organization, there are several people who were recruited by him. There is no suspense about who they are loyal to. Therefore, the leaders only rely on their own strength to ensure dignity in the organization. But now he feels that his position as leader is under threat. Although he didn't want to admit it, Nagato knew that Obito was now similar to him in terms of strength, or even surpassed him. After all, Obito possesses the magic of time and space. Even though his eyes have many methods, it is still difficult to defeat the opponent. Nagato had a feeling that, if the masked man was allowed to continue to grow, both he and Konan might be in danger. This is what Nagato doesn't want to see. For Sen Nagato, fulfilling Yahiko's wish is the most important thing. Before that, he and Konan can't have any accidents, especially Konan. Now that Yahiko has passed away, he must protect Konan for the other party. Nagato's face was gloomy, and he was thinking about how to increase his strength again. If he glanced down at his legs, a dim look flashing in his eyes. His legs were disabled when Yahiko died, and even using the Rinnean Eye method could not restore them. In fact, it was precisely because his own legs were disabled that he created the 6 paths of pain point. But few people know that only his body can exert its true power. Haha, Uzumaki Nagato, do you also have troubles, even if you call yourself a god? At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded in the cave. Nagato did not show any surprise when he heard the voice. He only saw his hands turning the wheelchair in one direction, and a black shadow appeared. In his sight point, the giant pitcher plant, with its distinct black and white body, is the perfect person. Nagato was not surprised by Kanju's appearance. In fact, when Ze was approaching the cave, he had already sensed Ze's aura. Konoha's Uzumaki Naraku is not blind, as Mr. Zetsu said, and his strength should not be underestimated, Nagato said to Zetsu in a cold tone. Perhaps because Obito's changes have been too obvious in recent years, Zetsu has been in secret contact with Nagato very frequently. Among them, Zetsu revealed the news about Uzumaki Naraku to Nagato. The change of Naraku Yadozu was also beyond Zetsu's expectation. In fact, not only Naraku, but also Kakashi, his growth also made Zetsu feel incredible. With the flying thunder god technique, coupled with the divine power of his left eye, it can be said that Kakashi's threat today has surpassed that of the 4th generation. The reason why Zetsu had many contacts with Nagato was because he was worried that Obito would not be able to take on a big role. After all, although Obito was strong at the time, he would not be able to become as strong as the 1st generation and Madara. Therefore, he is absolutely afraid that Obito will capsize, and Nagato can be regarded as his backup tire to complete his 1000-year plan. What Zetsu didn't expect was that not only was Obito not defeated by Kakashi and others, but he went one step further. Not only did he make a qualitative leap in strength, but he also had the potential to become a strong man like Madara. While I was absolutely happy about this, I also felt worried in my heart. Obito's performance in the past 2 years has become more and more independent, and some things have even exceeded their plans. Zetsu feels that Obito has become more and more unstable. Although Madara left a seal in Obito's heart, that seal is now controlled by Zetsu. With that seal, he can kill Obito instantly. But if it's just Obito's life, that's not what Zetsu wants, and even if he kills Obito now, it will only bring harm to him, and no benefit at all. What Zetsu really wants to do is to contain Obito, so that he can willingly carry out the plan, and when the time comes, he will naturally solve it completely. So for Zetsu, although Obito's strength has been greatly enhanced now, and can compete with Naraku, Kakashi and others, it is difficult for him to influence Obito's thoughts. That's why he appears here now. If there is anyone in this world who can become a strong man at the level of Madara, the 1st generation, Nagato in front of him is definitely one of them. Nagato, who has the Rinnegan eye and his pure Uzumaki clan bloodline, could have had unparalleled combat power. However, he was initially worried that Nagato would be too powerful to control him, so he secretly planned to destroy his legs. Lose point in this way. Although Nagato has the ability of the Samurai, he cannot fully use it, which is exactly what Zetsu wants, but now he's changing his mind. Chapter 252, Light, maybe not far away from me. Inside the cave, Nagato and Kai were talking secretly, and when Konan returned to the cave, she only saw Nagato sitting in a wheelchair. At this time, Nagato looked very complicated, and didn't know what he was thinking. Konan noticed that he was holding a scroll in his hand. Konan, we may have to leave the Rain Ninja village for a while, Nagato Yoshito said, when he noticed Konan walking into the cave. Leaving Rain Ninja village? Konan frowned slightly when she heard this. Since she established the Akatsuki organization with Yohiko and Nagato, she has almost never left the Rain Ninja village. But then a look of shock appeared on Konan's face, and Nagato in his side suddenly reached out and pulled out a black tube inserted into his body. Snapped. Dark red blood could be seen splattering from his body. Nagato. Konan looked surprised when he saw this scene. You must know that since Yohiko's death, the black tubes connected to Nagato's body have almost never been disconnected. Snapped. Ignoring her shock, Nagato here quickly pulled out all the black tubes from his body with the help of his hands. Nagato was sitting in a wheelchair and gasping for air. You could see that his face was a little pale at this time, and his thin body and chest were rising and falling. He looked like an old man who was about to decay. However, this state did not last long. Now Nagato is in his prime, and the physique of the Uzumaki clan has shown its due power. I saw that after no longer being absorbed by the heretic demon, Nagato's condition began to recover visibly. It did not take too long at all, and a touch of blood appeared on his face. At this time, he has just completed the 6 paths of pain, and his personal physique has not become as dying as in the original work, so he can recover to this state in such a short period of time. Roar. Suddenly, a low roar came from the depths of the cave behind Nagato, and the next moment, boom, boom. The sound of the ground shaking sounded, and Zyunen looked into the depths of the cave with some fear, and a look of fear appeared on her face. She knew what that monster was. Humph, calm down, but at this moment, a cold snort came, and it was Nagato who spoke, and his pair of purple reincarnation eyes were full of indifference. Then Nagato pushed the wheelchair with his hands, turning his body behind him. Looking at the swinging black tentacles behind him, a coldness flashed in Nagato's eyes. It was the heretic demon in front of him. Because it was absorbing the energy from his body all the time, it made his body so weak. In fact, since summoning the heretic demon, Nagato's own spiritual path has gone astray. He thought that he could only use the power of the samurai if he was always connected to the heretic demon. In fact, that was wrong. The heretic demon is just a body, and the nine-tailed beasts are extracted from its body. Today's outer path golem is like a tank with fuel. To move this tank, you need a lot of fuel, and Nagato is used as fuel. The outer golems can withstand the combined energy of the nine-tailed beasts, so even Nagato of the Uzumaki clan cannot supply the needs of the outer golems. Before condensing into the 6 paths of pain, Nagato relied on the outside demons in most of his battles, which was also the main reason for his physical weakness. But now Nagato realizes something under Zetsu's reminder. From some aspects, the heretic golem has inhibited his growth. That's why there was a scene where Nagato severed the connection between himself and the heretic demon. Let's rest for a while first, heretic demon. Nagato whispered in his heart, then raised his hands, made a mark, and then whispered, psychic technique, solve it, boom, just. After he finished speaking, there was a loud noise, and then a huge burst of white smoke appeared in front of Nagato. Boom. Boom. At the same time, the entire cave suddenly began to shake violently, as if it would collapse at any time. Because Nagato and the heretic golem have been here for several years, and the huge body of the heretic golem has long been integrated with the mountain. Now Nagato suddenly released his communication with the heretic golem. The heretic demon suddenly disappeared, and it was normal for the mountain to collapse. Boom, boom. Pieces of boulders visible to the naked eye slid down, quickly filling the area, and Nagato and Konan also disappeared. At the same time, above the ninja world, above the moon. Boom. After a loud noise, a huge thing landed on the moon. This is the figure who looked young walked to the side of the heretic demon, and a look of fear appeared on the man's face. What's strange is that this man's eye sockets are indeed blank, as if he has no eyeballs. Wow. At this moment, countless extremely thick chains suddenly strung out from the ground, and then all of these chains were tied to the demon statue of the heretic. It didn't take long for the outer demon statue to be covered with dense chains. The next moment, the chain exerted force and pulled the body of the heretic demon towards the depths of Sui dynasty. This is the activation of the formation left by our ancestors. This means that the monster in front of me is the 10-tailed body that suddenly disappeared that year. After the outer demon statue disappeared from sight, the young figure murmured. It can be seen that this figure seemed to have an expression of joy on his face at this time, and then he flashed and walked in one direction. Light, maybe it's not far away from me. Outside the Rain Ninja village. At this time, Naraku was fighting with Obito. The two first had a battle in taijutsu and ninjutsu, but there was no winner, to put it bluntly. Naraku feels that Obito has been completely transformed now, and his opponent has undergone a qualitative change in both physical and ninjutsu. Even Naraku feels that he is only slightly better than Obito in ninjutsu. However, Naraku knew very well that at their level, ordinary ninjutsu and taijutsu could not distinguish between them. The confrontation at this time was just two people testing each other. But at this moment, Naraku seemed to sense something, and his expression suddenly changed. He felt the auras of Nagato and Konan suddenly disappear. It seems that you attach great importance to the samurai. Naraku looked up at Obito in front of him and said. Obito did not answer Naraku's words. Although he was wearing a mask at this time, Obito knew that his identity had already been exposed. Chapter 253 Naraku's Discovery. New Time and Space Ninjutsu. Near Ninja Village, Obito raised his head, and his two scarlet Sharingan eyes fell on the red-haired figure in front of him. In fact, Obito was no stranger to Naraku. When the Minato couple adopted Naraku, the accident hadn't happened yet, and he was just Minato's student. But now things have changed. The leader's face is gloomy. He has long forgotten his past feelings. He had already completely killed Minato on the night he killed him. Cut off cause and effect. Obito knew he had no room for regret. Haha, Uchiha Hideshi, although you are a little pitiful, but since you have done some things, you will always have to pay some price. Naraku, who was standing opposite the dashi, thought to himself. Then Naraku closed his eyes slightly, and then a strange energy appeared on his body. The next moment, a fiery red line appeared on his face, which looked like a tattoo. It is Sage Mode. With Naraku's current strength, it is very simple to enter Sage Mode instantly. In this state, all aspects of his body have increased significantly, especially the amount of chakra. If the amount of chakra in Naraku's body before was only barely comparable to that of weaker tailed beasts, then in his Sage state, he has undoubtedly surpassed ordinary tailed beasts, but compared with the strongest tailed beast, Nine Tails, there is still a gap in comparison. But even so, Naraku's chakra amount at this time is far ahead of Obito in front of him, and in the Sage state, he automatically possesses an ninjutsu of Muji healing. So theoretically speaking, as long as Obito in front of him can't kill him with one blow, Naraku can basically be considered invincible. However, Naraku knew that this was just a theory, and Obito had plenty of ways to kill him with the power of Kamu. And now that Obito has completed his transformation, Naraku doesn't want to hand over his life here, because he underestimates the enemy in Sage Mode. Haha, Naraku Yadozu, you really like to surprise people. If that's the case, let me see how many tricks you have. Obito, who noticed the change in Solo, snorted coldly, and then his scholar eyes exuded endless coldness. The next moment, the three black Magatama visible to the naked eye began to rotate rapidly. The next moment, a black circle appeared in his scholar eyes, and Naraku noticed that there were three crescent-like blade patterns inside the black circle. This is Naraku exclaimed when he saw these eyes. They were a new pair of Sharingan. Is it the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan? Naraku secretly thought to himself, looking at the brand new Mangekyou Sharingan in front of him. His brows gradually wrinkled. Zosuke. Uchiha, sure. Enough. The reason I saved him was to absorb the opponent's Mangekyou Sharingan. Naraku guessed secretly in his heart. According to the records in the original work, if the Mangekyou Sharingan wants to go further, it can only absorb a pair of Mangekyou Sharingan who are also close relatives. Naraku also asked Fugaku about this aspect. Obito no longer has any close relatives in this world, and he felt a little pity for this, because Naraku wanted to help Kakashi's left eye go further. But now it seems that Obito once again took another shortcut and took a different path. Naraku guessed that, even if Obito's new pair of Mangekyou Sharingan did not reach the level of the eternal Mangekyou, it would not be too different. Coupled with Obito's completely changed system, maybe he could really reach that state. Suddenly, a sound of space oscillation came, and the originally stable space in front of Naraku suddenly fluctuated like a tide, and then a space vortex formed on Naraku's body. The next moment, Naraku felt a strong suction force appear on himself. Sure enough, the regrown left eye has the same ability as Brother K's eye, Naraku thought to himself. Then, let's have some fun. Phenolin. Then, a shocking scene appeared. After Naraku's body was pulled by the space vortex, it instantly became illusory, and then disappeared directly from the spot. Did Jingren succeed? Obito, in front, frowned when he saw this. He had had several confrontations with Uzumaki Naraku, and he did not think that he could solve the opponent with just one divine power. Suddenly, Obito seemed to sense something, and turned around suddenly to look behind him. I saw a red-haired figure holding a long black knife in his hand. The long knife was raised high and struck hard at his back. The red figure is Naraku. Sure enough, that was just a clone. The leader who saw this scene had cold eyes, and no trace of panic on his face. The next moment, his figure slowly trembled, and then disappeared instantly. At this time, Naraku's eyes trembled when he saw this scene. It's not a blur. He secretly thought to himself that Obito guessed correctly. It was his clone that was sucked into the Kamu space just now. Because the clone possesses magical chakra, it will not dissipate in a short period of time. Now that the clone is in the Kamu space and Naraku is outside, he just wants to force the leader to use virtualization to transfer his body to the Kamu space. But what he didn't expect was that Obito saw through his plan and used other tricks to defeat his attack. That move just now. Naraku turned his head and looked to the side, only to see Obito who had disappeared, appeared on his left side. Naraku frowned, and with his strength, he naturally sensed that Obito Goke was not using the teleportation technique. Naraku is still very confident about this. With his current strength, even Kakashi cannot use the teleportation technique to avoid his attack at such a close distance point, unless he uses the Flying Thunder God technique, Uchiha. Sasuke. It seems that his pair of Manka abbreviated Rinnegan once again gave Obito a new time and space ninjutsu. A trace of fear flashed in Naraku's eyes. Nowadays, Obito not only masters the twin powers of the gods, but also has a new time and space ninjutsu. With this kind of strength, even Naraku would not dare to be careless. Fire escape, storm dance. At this moment, a hoarse voice came from Obito's mouth, and then he opened his mouth and spit out a ball of red flame, and then the power of his right eye exploded. The red flames that were heading straight towards Naraku were instantly enveloped by a space vortex, and then the red flames turned into a flame tornado and swept towards Naraku. Naraku stared at this for a moment, then he held the knife in both hands, and a blazing energy burst out from his body. Chapter 254. Time and space ninjutsu is really tricky. Boom. Facing the attack of the storm released by Obito, a hot energy burst out from Naraku's body. It can be seen that he is enveloped in a ball of red light at this time, especially on his hands. The red light seems to have turned into a substantial flame. The next moment, all the red flames converged on the black long knife in Naraku's hand, and then Naraku exerted force and quickly swung the knife forward. Flame slash. Naraku shouted lowly. At this moment, red flames surrounded his body, and his whole body exuded a scorching heat. Kai. A sound broke through the air, and a flame burst out from the blade. The flame blade was filled with crimson flames. The next moment, the blade ripped through the air, and rushed straight towards the flame tornado in front of King. Boom. Immediately, the flame sword light and the flame tornado collided directly. For a moment, red flames splashed and scattered in all directions. Swish. At this moment, a figure in black robes flashed past. It was Obito. He raised his hands and was forming seals quickly. Wooden release, the art of cutting. A low shout was heard from his mouth, and then he flicked one hand, and instantly a wooden thorn rushed straight towards Naraku in front. But this was not over. Obito's hands did not stop, and were still forming seals quickly. Shuriken. Shadow clone jutsu. Call out, call out, call out. In an instant, dozens of air-piercing sounds sounded on the field. At this time, hundreds of wooden thorns could be seen on the field, all of which rushed towards Naraku. Facing the attack of wooden thorns, Naraku's scarlet eyes exuded endless coldness, and then he gave a cold shout. That's enough, Uchiha Obito. Let's have a real fight. After a cold drink, a powerful pupil power burst out from Naraku's body, and a golden six-pointed star pattern appeared in his pupils. Then the next moment, the golden light on his body surged. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, there was a collision sound, and all the wooden thorns that were rushing towards Naraku fell on the golden light, and turned into bursts of white smoke. A few seconds later, a half-length giant wearing golden armor and holding a golden giant sword in each hand appeared in front of Obito. It was Golden Susanoo, but this level may not be enough. Looking at the Golden Susan in front of him, Obito murmured softly in his mouth. Then he raised his hands and began to form seals quickly. Less than a second later, a loud shout came from his mouth. Wooden escape, the technique of the wooden man. Then, in an instant, a big tree near Obito began to grow wildly, eventually forming a huge wooden man with a height of more than 10 meters. You even mastered this move. Naraku, who stood above Susanoo, looked at the huge wooden man in front of him, and murmured, "Today's Obito gave him too many surprises. You must know that, since the death of the first generation, no one can use such powerful wood escape ninjutsu. Like Minato, who has transplanted the first generation cells, Danzo and the others can only use some low-level wood escape ninjutsu at best. Obito in front of him has obviously surpassed them. Although the giant wooden man more than 10 meters high in front of him cannot compare with the 100-meter wooden man used by the first generation, which is enough to compete with the complete Susanoo, it is still quite intimidating. Facing the wooden man who is more than 10 meters tall, even Naraku's half-length Susan is somewhat inadequate compared to it. But the next moment, Naraku's eyes narrowed slightly, and a strong fighting spirit was released from him. Since half Susan is not enough, then let's use the whole body. Boom. Violent chakra and powerful eye power burst out from Naraku's body at the same time, and then 2 lines of blood and tears flowed from his left and right eyes respectively. In an instant, the golden light above Susanna, who was nearly 10 meters high, rose sharply, and then the golden body of Susanna, visible to the naked eye, began to rise, and it did not stop until it rose to nearly 20 meters at this time. The golden Susanoo had grown legs, was wearing a golden armor, and held a golden giant sword in each hand. In terms of aura, he looked no different from the giant wooden man in front of him. Let's fight. Uchiha Obito, Naraku murmured in his heart, and then under his control, the golden Susanoo waved his hands, and 2 huge golden sword lights rushed forward quickly. Kai, facing the sword's offensive, Obito was not afraid at all. Standing on Bakuto's shoulders, his eyes were cold, and then the next moment, boom, boom. After 2 loud noises, 2 huge wooden dragons were seen emerging from the ground, blocking the front of the golden sword light point. At this time, Bakuto's legs were slightly bent, and then he exerted force. His huge body jumped up, and when he appeared, he was already in front of the golden Susan without any hesitation. Bakuto clenched his fists with both hands and struck directly at the golden Susan. Boom. In an instant, there was a sharp vibration, and Naraku felt a huge force transmitted to the golden Susan. Kick. The huge golden Susanoo took a few steps back, but at this moment, a golden light flashed, and a huge golden sword appeared, and struck Bakuto's shoulder. The golden giant sword was powerful and heavy, exuding endless power, but at this moment, a wooden dragon appeared again, blocking the front of the giant sword. Boom. In an instant, the giant sword hit the wooden dragon, tearing the wooden dragon's body into pieces in the blink of an eye. Immediately afterwards, the giant sword continued to rush forward with unabated momentum. Obito's pupils shrank slightly when he saw this, and then he put his hands together, and the wooden figure under his feet moved instantly. Snapped. Zhang's huge palm appeared and struck the blade of the golden giant sword. The huge force forced the giant sword to stop. Black flame thunder. But at this moment, a shout sounded on the field, and it was Naraku who spoke. I saw a black flame appearing on the wooden man's body. The flame was extremely black, and there was a crackling sound coming from inside. The flames covered with thunder and lightning fell on the wooden man, and in an instant, black flames began to spread on the wooden man. Divine power. But at this moment, a huge space vortex appeared. The space vortex began to rotate rapidly, and a strong suction force came from the vortex mouth. Immediately, the black flames originally attached to the wooden man began to surge towards the space vortex. In this way, the black flame thunder released by Naraku was cracked. The space-time ninjutsu is really tricky. Naraku's scarlet eyes trembled slightly. Well, suddenly, a muffled groan came from Naraku's mouth. At this time, he only felt a sharp pain in his eyes. First, he fought with Pain's 6 paths, and then fought with Kakuzu and hidden for a while. At this time, Naraku's power was too severely exhausted. His newly recovered eyes could no longer withstand such an intense battle. Chapter 255 would release ninjutsu. It seems I can do it too. Near Ninja Village. Because of the battle between Naraku and Obito, the environment here has been completely destroyed. It can be seen that a golden giant more than 10 meters tall holding 2 golden giant swords is confronting a huge wooden man made of wood. Around these 2 giant creatures, the ground cracks and deep pits appear one after another above the ground. Swish. Suddenly, a red figure flashed and appeared in the golden Susan's body. It was Naraku, but at this time, there was a look of pain on his face. In front of him, Obito in black robes flashed and stood on the shoulders of the giant wooden man. Humph. How ignorant. Obito snorted coldly in his heart, his scarlet eyes exuding endless coldness. From Obito's point of view, although Naraku's eyes have regained the light now, and his strength seems to be stronger than a few years ago, but even so, Naraku's eyes are still just ordinary kaleidoscopes, not the eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. Obito knows the shortcomings of the Mangekyou Sharingan better than anyone else. You must know that even he only relied on a large number of first generation cells to overcome the shortcomings, but even the first generation cells could only guarantee him 1 Sharingan. After Obito's left eye regrown, he discovered that his left eye was not as capable of using the kaleidoscope as his right eye was. Like a normal owner of the main Gekai Sharingan, Obito's left eye will gradually become blind with the number of uses, and the reason why he chose to absorb Zuosuke's eyes at this time is also for this reason point. Although Zuosuke is not Obito's closest relative, perhaps because of Obito's special physique, after Obito absorbed Zuosuke's Sharingan, his eyes underwent a qualitative change. Obito can feel that both the eye power and the abilities of the Sharingan have been greatly enhanced. After a simple experiment, Obito found that the problem of blindness in his left eye was also solved. This also means that for Obito today, as long as his pupil power is enough, he can even use the kaleidoscope unlimitedly. Although Obito has not seen the power of the eternal Mangeki Sharingan, he feels that his pair of scarlet blood pupils are not far behind even compared to the eternal Mangeki. It was these eyes that gave Obito the capital to be confident. Even Naraku, who had both Uchiha and Uzumaki bloodlines, was not looked down upon by him now. At this time, Naraku's face in the golden Susanoo was a little ugly. Although he didn't want to admit it, Obito at this time had indeed surpassed him in some aspects, not to mention that Obito's eye power has surpassed him. The dual divine power alone has already made Naraku feel very troublesome. And another point is that the current Obito's physique has been integrated with the first generation cells. Not only does he possess a chakra amount close to that of Naraku, he is also able to use the powerful wood release ninjutsu. Naraku looked up at the huge wooden man in front of him, and his cold eyes finally fell on Obito at the shoulder of the wooden man. Boom. The next moment, strong fighting spirit burst out from Naraku again. In fact, Naraku could feel the auras of Nagato and Konan disappearing at this time, and he knew that these two people had left here. Naraku also gave up the idea of meeting Nagato at this time. Looking at Obito in front of him, Naraku just wanted to let go and fight with him. In fact, Naraku is very clear about his disadvantages. His eyes have just grown. In addition, he has consumed a lot of pupil power before Obito came. It is normal for him to lose to Obito now. He knew that Naraku knew that if he continued to overuse the power of these eyes, it would be possible for him to become blind again. But Naraku didn't care about this at this time. Blindness was nothing to worry about for him now. It seems that today we can let go and fight. A look of madness appeared on Naraku's face. Then he formed a mark with one hand, and then a diamond-shaped red pattern appeared between his eyebrows. The next moment, a strange energy emanated from the center of his eyebrows. This energy is completely different from chakra, and is full of life. Then the red patterns on Naraku's face became brighter and brighter. The next moment, Naraku's sore eyes instantly recovered. An extremely clear feeling appeared in his eyes, and most of the pupil power that had been consumed was restored at this moment. The yin seal is opened. Naraku murmured. Considering the relationship between Naraku and Tsunade, he would naturally not let go of the other party's famous skills. In fact, Naraku has learned almost all the ninjutsu that Tsunade masters now, and Naraku has even surpassed her just like the yin seal. Tsunade uses the yin seal to store the chakra accumulated daily, while Naraku stores the Senjutsu chakra. For Naraku, who is a member of the Uzumaki clan, his own chakra capacity is already very huge. If he simply stores chakra, the yin seal will not be of much help to him. But Naraku found another shortcut. He directly stored the magic chakra in the yin seal. It can be seen that Naraku exudes a strong and vital aura at this time. If the Sage mode just now can enhance Naraku's own strength by about 5 times, but now in this state, Naraku's body strength in all aspects has been enhanced by nearly 10 times. This kind of enhancement is an all-round enhancement, whether it is ninjutsu or taijutsu. There has been a complete change. Senjutsu. Chakra, Obito in front murmured. A trace of solemnity flashed in his scarlet eyes compared with before. Naraku now gave him a sense of threat. However, Obito still had great confidence in himself at this time. Then he put his hands together, and a wooden dragon with a thick body suddenly emerged from the ground, and then the wooden dragon circled its body, and wrapped around the golden Susanoo. Boom, boom. At the same time, the giant wooden man also began to move, raising his huge fist, and hitting the golden Susan point. Upon seeing this, Naraku raised the corners of his mouth slightly, raised his hands, and began to form seals quickly, and at the same time, he opened his mouth and whispered. Would release ninjutsu. It seems I can do it. Just after Naraku finished speaking, boom, boom, the ground suddenly shook violently, and then several thick wooden dragons were seen rising from the ground like thick vines, like horned dragons. Each thick vine is like a huge horned dragon, circling around each other and spreading in all directions. The wooden dragon summoned by Obito was instantly wrapped in several vines, directly submerging it in the forest sea. Wooden escape. The birth of the tree world. Chapter 256. The great Buddha of Sasanata may not be far away. Boom, boom. As the ground continued to tremble, thick branches were circling and dancing like a horned dragon. You can even master the wood release. It's still at this level, Obito thought to himself. A look of surprise appeared on his face under the orange tiger striped mask. For the wooden ninjutsu, Obito still has a sense of awe in his heart. After all, in addition to the time and space ninjutsu that comes with the main Gekyo, the wooden ninjutsu is his strongest attack method, and Obito knew that the main reason why he was able to exert the power of wooden ninjutsu was because a large number of first generation cells were transplanted into his body, and then after his own physique changed, only then can one use wood escape ninjutsu of a level like the Bokyo no Jutsu. With such strong vitality in your body, it seems that you have also transplanted the first generation cells. Obito looked up at Naraku, the golden Sasane, with a sneer on his face. In his opinion, the reason Naraku was able to use the wood release ninjutsu was because, like him, he had a large number of first generation cells transplanted into his body. Facing Obito's misunderstanding, Naraku didn't open his mouth to explain anything. He just put his hands together and controlled the huge branches on the ground to wrap around the wooden figure. In fact, Obito may not be aware that Naraku's method of mastering the wood release ninjutsu is not what he thought at all. In today's ninja world, all people who can use wood escape ninjutsu have more or less first generation cells transplanted into their bodies. The most outstanding among them is Obito. He perfectly integrated the first generation cells with his own Uchiha clan bloodline, which ultimately led to a qualitative change in his physique. After changing his physique, Obito not only gained a huge increase in chakra, he also gained extremely strong self-healing ability, which is not much different even compared to Naraku's Muji healing. The reason why his left eye was able to grow back was due to his body's powerful self-healing ability. That is to say, after his physical condition improved, the power of the wood escape ninjutsu released by Obito also changed qualitatively. But in the final analysis, the reason why Obito is able to use wood escape ninjutsu is because of the first generation cells. But Naraku is different. The wood release ninjutsu used by Naraku relies entirely on himself. In fact, after Naraku completely mastered the ninjutsu of the Shigao forest, he automatically mastered the wood release ninjutsu. Although Naraku has some difficulty understanding this, it is the fact. Therefore, although he did not have the first generation cells transplanted into his body at this time, he could still use the wood release ninjutsu. Naraku felt very strange about this at first. For this reason, he also asked Tsunade and Slug Immortal about the reason, but Slug Immortal did not give him an answer because of his eternal sleep. Tsunade was also very surprised by this, and she didn't know the reason. In the end, Naraku could only attribute it to the power of Shigbone Forest Immortal technique. However, Naraku himself has some speculations about this, but they have not been verified yet. On the field, there were already several thick branches wrapped around the wooden man's legs, and they were quickly circling towards his waist. Boom, boom. But at this moment, two loud noises were heard, and the huge wooden man suddenly raised his right leg. The huge force instantly tore the branches wrapped around his leg to pieces, and then his right leg was swept in the air. The roots and branches of the tree broke directly in the middle. An area was cleared instantly. But the next moment, the torn thick branches seemed to be resurrected, growing back and continuing to wrap around the wooden figure. Although the ninjutsu of Tree World Advent is not as powerful as the Bokyo Jutsu, fortunately, its binding force is strong, and even the Bokyo are unable to break free for a while. Kai. At this moment, several sounds broke through the air. Obito, who noticed the movement, raised his head slightly, and saw several dazzling golden lights in front of him. Each ray of golden light was a golden sword light several feet long. At this time, the golden Susanoo was seen holding a golden sword in each hand and waving it continuously. The dazzling golden sword light exuded endless power, and the sword light tore through the air and struck quickly towards the wooden man. In response to this, Obito's scarlet eyes trembled slightly, and in the next moment, 2 lines of blood and tears fell from his eyes. At the same time, a powerful life force burst out from Obito's body. The next moment, a dazzling blue light burst out from Obito's body, and then the blue light visible to the naked eye spread towards the wooden man at his feet. Almost instantly, the huge wooden man's body was covered with blue light. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the golden sword light rushed over and landed on the wooden man covered in blue light. Almost instantly, the moment the 2 energies collided, the surrounding air fluctuated like a wave, and violent vibrations rang out on the field. Gold and blue energy splashed around. Sure enough, he also mastered Susanoo. After regaining his eyes, Naraku looked up at the huge wooden figure covered in blue light in front of him, and murmured in his heart. He knew it was Obito's Susanoo. Naraku was not surprised that Obito used this move. After all, Obito's left eye has regrown and absorbed Zuoji's eyes. It is not difficult for him to master Susanoo. Boom, boom. The golden sword light continuously bombarded the wooden man covered in blue light. When the 2 collided with each other, they produced a huge impact and set off a burst of smoke. It can be seen that the blue light on the wooden man's body has turned into huge blue scales at this time. The rhombus-shaped blue scales look like blue crystals, but their strength is far greater than that of crystals. The sword light released by the golden Susanoo was all blocked by the blue scales. Even if 1 or 2 pieces were broken, they were restored in an instant. The next moment, 2 huge blue long knives appeared in Bakuto's hands. Then Bakuto swung violently, and in an instant, a blue sword light burst out and struck towards the golden Susan in front. Haha, if things continue like this, the great Buddha of Sasanata may not be far away. Looking at the wooden figure wrapped in blue Susanoo in front of him, Naraku had a playful smile on his face. Then the next moment, a violent force burst out from his body. Then Naraku stretched out his right hand, and a crimson ball appeared in his palm, and the next moment swish, Naraku's figure disappeared in an instant, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Obito. At Bakuto's shoulder. Kai. There were sounds of breaking through the air, and you could see that the red ball of light in Naraku's hand had turned into a huge, rapidly rotating shuriken. In the center of the shuriken, the red ball of light was spinning rapidly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Heavy Juice Plan. Immortal Magic, Fire Escape, Spiral Shuriken. A low shout came from Naraku's mouth, and then Naraku flicked one hand and threw the shuriken forward. Then he raised his hands and began to form seals quickly. Boom. The spiral shuriken surrounded by red flames fell directly on the wooden figure, wrapped in blue Susanoo. Almost instantly, several cracks appeared on the diamond-shaped blue scales, as if they would be completely broken in the next moment. Divine power. But at this moment, a hoarse voice sounded on the field, and it was Obito who spoke. His left eye trembled, and a powerful pupil power emanated from their point. Hum. Almost instantly, the sound of space vibration sounded, and the originally stable space visible to the naked eye instantly fluctuated, and the rapidly rotating spiral shuriken also became distorted, as if it would be transferred to the Camus space in the next moment. But at this moment, a low shout sounded. The spiral shuriken shadow clone jutsu. It was Naraku who spoke, and a large amount of chakra poured out of him. After completing the seal point almost instantly, the spiral shuriken that was about to be teleported away by Obito was divided into 2, and then divided into 4, and dozens of rapidly spinning shuriken appeared on the field. Kai. The shurikens kept cutting the air, making a sound of breaking through the air. The next moment, all the shurikens rushed forward quickly and landed on the wooden man. At this time, Obito frowned slightly, and then his left eye condensed slightly. After a wave of pupil power, his shuriken, which was still twisting, returned to its original shape. Then Obito used his feet to exert force, and he jumped up from Bakuto's shoulders and rushed directly towards Naraku. Point swish. One of the shurikens that was spinning rapidly appeared in front of his eyes, but at this time, Obito seemed not to have seen the shuriken at all, and his body was still moving forward rapidly. Point however, if you look carefully, you will find that Obito's figure at this time is a bit unreal. Point the next moment, the shuriken went straight through his body and then landed on the wooden man behind him. Point at this time, Obito seemed to have given up on Bakuto. After his body left Bakuto's body, the diamond-shaped blue scales wrapped around Bakuto's body slowly dissipated. Without Susanoo's protection, the Bakuto's defense dropped sharply. Almost instantly, dozens of shurikens broke through the defense and fell on the Bakuto. Naraku's pupils froze slightly when he saw this scene, and then he formed a mark with one hand. Boom, boom, boom. Almost instantly, dozens of explosions sounded. I saw those rapidly rotating shurikens exploding like bombs. Almost instantly, the huge wooden man fell into pieces under the impact of the explosion, and then fell to the ground with a bang. After the explosion, red flames filled the area, and many places on the ground were scorched. Point. Although Bakuto was solved, Naraku did not relax his vigilance at this time. At this time, he was staring ahead, where Obito was standing safe and sound. Point. Although Naraku's attack just now was very fierce, it actually did not cause any harm to Obito himself. In fact, for Naraku now, it is really difficult for him to defeat Obito in front of him, and at most he can only be invincible. Just land. Point. After all, at this time, Obito has mastered the dual divine power. Apart from other things, his life-saving ability is absolutely unparalleled in the ninja world. Naraku feels that even Super Cage level powerhouses Madara and Hashirama would have been hard pressed to do anything about Obito in their heyday. Earthy. Point. But if Madara had the Rinnegan, it might be possible to defeat Obito. Point. I have to say that Naraku was very surprised that Obito could grow to this point. You must know that, although Obito in the original work is very strong, he has never grown to this point. Just like when Obito fought against Minato, at that time Obito could only show off his power with the power of his right eye. Point. Until the end, if Obito only relied on his own strength, he would be a top shadow level powerhouse, and there was still some distance between him and the Super Cage level point. But it's different now. Naraku feels that Obito has already reached the level of Chiokage at this time. Even if there is still a gap between him and strong men like Hashirama and Madara in terms of frontal strength, it is only now. As long as Obito is given enough time, Naraku feels that it is only a matter of time before he becomes a strong man of Hashirama's level. It seems we must deal with you as soon as possible, Obito. Naruto secretly thought in his heart. A cold light flashed from his eyes, and a strong murderous intention burst out from his body. Point. In fact, Obito has always been on Naraku's must-kill list. After all, he killed Minato. No matter what, Naraku would never forgive him for this. Just when Naraku and Obito were confronting each other here, two figures appeared not far from here. Point. The giant pitcher plant, with its black and white body, was none other than Ju, and standing next to him was Alyosha, who was controlled by Ju's clone. Point. At this time, Zetsu looked unblinkingly in the direction of Naraku and the others, with a trace of deep fear flashing in his eyes. Especially Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu is a special creature, the product of Kaguya Otsutsuki's body that fell off before being sealed by the two brothers of Sage of Six Paths. It is a very special life form, and Black Zetsu considers himself to be Kaguya's child. Point. Although they are both the children of Kaguya Otsutsuki, but unlike the Six Paths Sage brothers, Black Zetsu himself does not have too much strength, and he does not even have the strength of a Jonin. However, although Heliju is not strong, due to his special body, he can attach to other living beings. If the other party is not strong, Heliju can even control the other party. It is precisely relying on this, and his calculations, that are no less than anyone else, that Black Ju can plan to this point. After nearly 1,000 years of planning, Heliju bet all his hopes on this plan. Madara, Obito, or White Zetsu, who has the same body as him, are just pawns of his Black Zetsu. However, Black Zetsu's expression was not very good at this time. For him, Obito and Nagato had the same role. They were just tools to help him collect tailed beasts. But at this time, Black Zetsu just felt that Obito was a little out of his control. So to be sure and to be able to check and balance Obito, he would help Nagato point in addition to Obito. Naraku and Kakashi also gave Black Zetsu a big surprise point. Minato, who was extremely talented at the time, made him feel the pressure, but fortunately he was able to deal with the opponent. But who knew that Naraku and Kakashi would appear again now? Point in terms of cultivation. Talent. These two people are only stronger than the original Minato. Point. The reason why he helped Nagato improve his strength had something to do with Naraku and Kakashi. Chapter 258 Strange Black Python. It's better to take advantage of now and deal with Naraku Uzumaki directly. Ju, who was watching the battle not far away, said coldly. After speaking, he turned his head and glanced behind him, where there were two familiar figures. One of them was lying on the ground with a look of madness on his face. This person was hidden. Point. It can be seen that, although he is still lying on the ground at this time, most of the wounds on his body that were previously slashed by Naraku have healed. Except for the wound on his abdomen, which is still somewhat obvious. The rest can no longer be seen. Next to hidden was Kakuzu. At this time, Kakuzu's body was surrounded by black lines, as if he was absorbing something. Zetsu's face showed a cold look at this time, and he was thinking whether to take this opportunity to deal with Naraku directly. Point. Obviously, their side has a great advantage in the current situation. Point. In Zetsu's opinion, Obito alone can directly suppress Naraku. If Ratsa, Kakuzu, and Hidden are also included, it will not be difficult to deal with Naraku. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and a strong killing intent arose in Ju's body. Well, you want to keep me here? Naraku, who was fighting with Obito, instantly noticed the killing intent in Zetsu, and he was not surprised at all. After all, the two sides have been mortal enemies for a long time, and if he had the chance, he would not let them go. Point. At this time, Obito's eyes trembled, and he was also aware of Zetsu's thoughts. He had no objection to this. If possible, he wanted to keep Naraku here today. Point. Although Obito has improved his physical condition at this time and transplanted Zuosuke's eyes, which has greatly improved his strength and potential, Obito always has an intuition in his heart. That is Naraku in front of him, and it will definitely become his biggest obstacle in the future. So if Naraku can be dealt with here at this time, Obito would heartily agree with it. But at the next moment, Obito seemed to notice something. His scarlet eyes narrowed slightly, and a complicated expression appeared under the mask. Obito then quickly distanced himself from Naraku. At this time, it can be seen that around Naraku, the originally stable space became turbulent, and then a silver figure appeared and stood beside Naraku. With long silver white hair, a black mask, and a somewhat slender figure. The person coming was none other than Kakashi. Brother K, you came in time this time. Naraku's slightly teasing voice sounded on the field. Point. Naraku was not surprised by Kakashi's appearance, because he was the one who informed him. Point. Although Naraku was not afraid of Obito and the others due to his strength, in order to be sure, he still informed Kakashi and asked him to come over quickly. For Kakashi, who has mastered the Flying Thunder God technique, rushing is the easiest thing to do. Point. The Flying Thunder God mark left by Kakashi on Naraku's body. As long as Naraku sends chakra towards the mark, Kakashi will notice it. The time and space ninjutsu, the Flying Thunder God's technique, are so powerful. Point. At this moment, a sound of space vibration came, and the space around Obito instantly fluctuated like a tide, and then his solid body gradually became illusory. Kakashi's eyes narrowed slightly at this, and just when he was about to raise his left eye protector and use his divine power to stop Obito, Naraku reached out to stop him. Forget it, Brother K. Naraku, who said this, shook his head slightly. Although Naraku was full of murderous intentions towards Obito, he knew that this period was not the time to completely deal with him. Point. Now that he and Kakashi join forces, they may be able to solve Obito, but that is not what Naraku wants. For Naraku, whether it is Obito's goal, Madara's plan, or even Black Zetsu's 1000-year plan, Naraku is very clear in his heart. If they want to do it, Naraku now has the strength to stop their plan. Naraku had the same idea in the past. He wanted to deal with Obito and the others in advance, and put an end to Black Zetsu's plan to resurrect Kaguya. It's just that Naraku has changed his mind now. Naraku knew that there would be many powerful enemies of the Otsutsuki clan in the ninja world in the future, as well as the extremely mysterious shell organization. The strength of these people is far beyond the shadow level point. Although he and Kakashi are still quite strong now, they are nothing compared to those people. For now, not to mention those people from the Otsutsuki clan, they are Uchiha, Madara and the first generation. Naraku. Kakashi may not be able to defeat them either. So Naraku knew that Kakashi and the others were still far behind. Not only the two of them, but also Shizu and Itachi. Both of them also have extremely strong talents, and they can also grow under a certain amount of pressure. There are also Naruto and Sasuke. You must know that these two are the protagonists in the original work. Naraku will not waste those two powers of 6 paths. So in order for everyone to grow up, Naraku decided not to take action against Obito and Black Zetsu. Although Kakashi didn't understand why Naraku wanted to stop him, in the end he chose to believe in Naraku. After all, Naraku had never let him down. After the Zetsu people on the other side noticed Obito leaving, they also left here quickly. After all, if Obito was not around, either Naraku or Kakashi could sweep them all away. After these people left here, Naraku and Kakashi looked at each other, and then the former put his hand on the latter's shoulder, and then their figures disappeared in a flash. Uzumaki Naraku, I'm waiting for your arrival. Boom, boom, boom. Not long after Naraku left here, there was a sound of breaking ground, and then a black python with a dark body and an open mouth spitting out a letter appeared here. The black python's eyes were cold as it kept swaying in an area, and then it could be seen crawling into a cave. This is the cave where Nagato once stayed. Previously, because Nagato released the communication with the heretic golem, the heretic golem returned directly to the moon, and the cave collapsed as the golem left. However, this black python seemed to be able to change its body shape at will, and the collapsed cave did not stop it. It wasn't until it sneaked into the cave that it began to slowly slow down its movement until finally, the black python stopped in front of several black pipes. Hiss. Hiss. After the black python circled around the black tube, a jaw-dropping scene appeared. The black python opened its mouth wide and swallowed the black tube directly into its belly. After the black tube was completely submerged into the black python's belly, it continued to crawl and move in this area, as if it was looking for something. Chapter 259 Nazuo prepares to graduate early. Konoha Village, the home of the Senju clan. The dazzling sunlight in the early morning shone through the window, and Naraku, who was still sleeping, was awakened by the warm sunlight. Then he slowly opened his eyes. Squeak. At this moment, the door to the room was pushed open from the outside. Hurry up, uncle. Today is my 9th battle with Sasuke. You promised to go and cheer me up. Before the door could be fully opened, Naruto's familiar voice came from outside the house. Upon hearing the voice, the corners of Naraku's mouth raised slightly, and a helpless smile appeared on his face. He opened his eyes and looked at the blonde boy in front of him. There are 6 black beards on the face. The upper body is a white short-sleeved shirt. The lower body is a light green shorts, and there are several circles of white bandages tied around the calf, with 2 wooden kunai inserted inside. Naruto after that was completely different from the one in the original work. It's Naruto. How could uncle forget your duel with Sasuke? Naraku said slowly. After he finished speaking, he had already put on his clothes and stood beside Naruto. Let's go, my nephew. Today is the last battle between you and Sasuke at the Ninja Academy. Naruto was slightly startled when he heard this, and then the expression on his face gradually became excited. Ninja Academy, the final battle. Hokage-sama has agreed that Sasuke and I will graduate early. Ha ha ha. Naruto couldn't help shouting with excitement. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. Since Shiro graduated from the Ninja Academy ahead of schedule, Naruto has also had this idea. His strength has already reached the genin level, and in some aspects he is even comparable to the average Chunin point, so he proposed to Tsunade and Kushina whether he and Sasuke could both graduate from the Ninja Academy early. However, Tsunade and Kushina refused without thinking. The current ninja world is in a period of peace, and except for some special exceptions, the village generally does not allow students to graduate from the Ninja Academy early. Normally, for a child like Naruto whose strength far exceeds his peers, Tsunade, as the Hokage, would consider letting him graduate early, just like Shiro. But Naruto, because of his special status, Tsunade never thought of letting him graduate early. Naruto was depressed about this for a while, but Tsunade as the Hokage and Kushina as the mother disagreed, and there was nothing he could do. Sasuke basically received the same treatment. He also proposed the same idea to Fugaku, but he also rejected it. Although Sasuke's training talent is not inferior to Itachi's, perhaps because Itachi has already shouldered too much, Fugaku does not have much hope for his youngest son. He only hopes that he can live his life smoothly. Alright, point it's just that Fugaku is awake. He knows that, since Sasuke was born an Uchiha and is still his son, it is impossible for him to be a real ordinary person. Fugaku could only do his best to make Sasuke's life easier. On this point, Itachi had the same idea. The reason why he carries so many burdens is just to protect his relatives. In fact, whether it is Tsunade, Kushina, or Fugaku, their ideas are correct. It is an eternal truth that the predecessors planted trees and the descendants enjoy the shade. Point it's just that Naraku has a different view on this. He was the one who helped Naruto and Sasuke graduate from the Ninja Academy early. In his opinion, Naruto and Sasuke have now fully become qualified ninjas, and continuing to stay in the Ninja Academy is just a waste of time. For them now, the knowledge from the Ninja Academy can no longer help them. Actual combat is what they need most. That's why Naraku proposed to Tsunade that Naruto and Sasuke graduate early. As for whether there would be any danger in graduation early, Naraku had already thought about it. He made a decision that neither Tsunade nor Fugaku could refuse. That is, he and Kakashi would be the leading teachers of Naruto and Sasuke, and the two would take turns teaching them. Fugaku agreed directly without even thinking about it. Naraku and Kakashi took turns teaching each other. This kind of treatment would make everyone jealous. You must know that the name of Kakashi's Silver Fang Flash has spread throughout the ninja world. There are rumors that Kakashi has now become the strongest in Konoha. Not to mention Naraku, no one knows how far he has grown since he defeated the 4th Raikage a few years ago. If it were someone else, Fugaku might still consider it, but with Kakashi and Naraku, Fugaku couldn't find any reason to refuse. Point so just like that, Naruto and Sasuke ended their school careers early. Boy, don't be too happy too early. Sister Tsunade said that only one of you or Sasuke can graduate early. If you lose today, you might still have to go back to school. Looking at Naruto, who was looking excited, Naraku decided to let him calm down. Sure enough, after hearing that only one of the two could graduate early, Naruto's excited expression instantly calmed down, and his expression gradually became silent. But after a brief silence, a look of determination appeared on Naruto's face, and then a confident smile filled his face again. As expected of you, Naruto. Naruto's change did not surprise Naraku. As the son of prophecy, how could he be so easily affected? Soon Naraku took Naruto to the village's #1 training ground. Before the two of them, several familiar figures appeared here. There was Kakashi with silver hair and a black mask, and Gai in a green training uniform. Point. But what surprised Naraku the most was the man standing next to Kakashi. He had long brown hair and green eyes. This man turned out to be Terumi Mei, the 5th Mizukage of Kirigakure village. Point. Although Kirigakure and Konoha are now allies, it is very surprising that Terumi Mei, a Mizukage, dares to appear alone in Konoha village. Point. However, Naraku didn't think much about it. She was just Terumi Mei, and she couldn't make much waves in Konoha village. What's more, he also saw something. The current relationship between Terumi Mei and Kakashi is indeed a bit abnormal. It seems that our brother K's charm is still very strong, Nago thought to himself. Sasuke. At this moment, Naruto suddenly shouted. Naraku followed his voice, and saw two slender young men walking over from the opposite side with a handsome little boy. These people were Shizu, Itachi and Sasuke. But at this moment, Naraku seemed to sense something, turned his head, and looked to the side, and a beautiful figure appeared in his sight. You're here, Red. Chapter 260. The descendant of the 4th Hokage must be a genius. Konoha Training Ground #1. At this time, there were two childish looking figures in the middle of the training ground, one yellow and one black. They were Naruto and Sasuke, who were about to have a duel point Naraku, and others stood around watching the contest between the two. Sasuke, I won't let you go this time. You can continue to study at the Ninja Academy. At this time, Naruto spoke with excitement, as if he had already won. Naraku and others are already used to this, especially Kakashi and Naraku. To them, Naruto's character is exactly the same as Kushina's. Terumi Mei was the only one present who didn't understand Naruto's character, but she knew that she was just an outsider and couldn't say anything. Continue to study at the Ninja Academy. At this moment, Zisu frowned slightly and looked at Naraku with suspicion. After the latter gave him a playful smile, Zisu seemed to understand something. Sasuke, it seems that this duel is quite stressful. Yo, Z, come on Naruto, come on Sasuke. At this moment, K excitedly raised his hands to cheer for the two people on the field. Let us see a real youth showdown. Humph. On the field, facing Naruto's arrogance, Sasuke just snorted coldly. Although his face was full of disdain, anyone with a discerning eye could see at this time that his body had tensed up, and Sasuke was ready to fight. For Naruto and Sasuke, they are not as they appear on the surface. The two of them have developed a deep bond in their hearts since they were fighting since childhood. In addition, he also knew Naruto's strength very well. The two of them had competed countless times, and each had his own victory or defeat. Although Sasuke was very confident in his own strength, he did not dare to be careless in the face of Naruto. Especially now that there were so many people watching the battle, and his brother was also there, Sasuke was even more determined to win. Sorry Naruto, I have to win this time, Sasuke murmured. Then his face straightened, he raised his feet, and took a step back. Naruto on the opposite side saw this, and stopped saying anything. He also raised his feet, and took a step back. Swish. At this moment, a red-haired figure instantly appeared between the two of them. It was Naraku. Naraku turned his head, and glanced at the two of them. With just one glance, he found that their eyes were full of determination. Naraku nodded secretly. Naruto had lived up to his expectations. He seemed careless now, but if something really happened, he would calm down quickly. Sasuke's changes are even more obvious. Although he is not very old now, he has already lost the inherent shortcoming of the Uchiha clan, which is arrogance. Although Sasuke looked cold on the surface now, Naraku couldn't feel the slightest bit of arrogance in him. The performance of both of them made Naraku felt very pleased. Immediately after his order, the competition between the two officially began. Call out, call out, call out. At the moment, when the competition started, several sounds broke through the air, and Sasuke was seen swinging his hands, and in an instant, several shurikens rushed forward. The target of the shuriken was none other than Naruto. Although Naruto's face was solemn, he did not panic at all. He quickly bent down, and pulled out the wooden kunai from his calf. The next moment, light blue chakra appeared on the wooden kunai point. Although the wooden kunai cannot carry chakra, all Naruto did was wrap the chakra in the wooden kunai, which can greatly enhance the power of the kunai point. After doing this, Naruto did not sit still and wait for death. He raised his feet and rushed towards Sasuke. Call out. At this moment, a shuriken ripped through the air and appeared in front of Naruto. Naruto seemed to have not seen the shuriken and continued to rush forward. But the next moment, the shuriken appeared from behind Naruto, as if it had passed directly through his body. But this was just an illusion. Naruto just quickly changed his body shape and let the shuriken pass through his body. Boom. After dodging a shuriken attack, Naruto once again used the kunai in his hand to knock away a shuriken. By now the distance between him and Sasuke was very close. Seeing that the shuriken did not cause harm to Naruto, Sasuke launched a new round of offensive at this time. He also held a kunai and started a fierce battle with Naruto. But perhaps no one noticed that Sasuke's free left hand was turned away from his back. Boom. Two wooden kunai collided together, making a dull sound. At this time, Sasuke only felt numbness in his arms. In terms of pure strength, he obviously could not compare with Naruto, who had half the Uzumaki bloodline. But at this moment, Sasuke's left hand, which was facing away from his back, suddenly tugged. Call out. In an instant, a sound broke through the air, and the shuriken that Naruto had just dodged suddenly changed its direction and stabbed Naruto in the back. The shuriken was extremely fast and arrived behind Naruto almost instantly, just when it was about to land on Naruto. "Sasuke, the real battle is about to begin," Naruto whispered in his heart, and then a powerful force surged out of him. Sasuke only felt a huge force coming from the kune. Several cracks appeared on the wooden kune visible to the naked eye, and then Sasuke quickly retreated without hesitation. Point at this time, while Naruto was repelling Sasuke with one hand, he also blocked the shuriken with the other hand. "Art fire escape ho fireball." But at this moment, Sasuke's voice suddenly sounded, and almost instantly, Naruto felt a wave of heat hit his face. I saw a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters appearing in front of Naruto. The fireball rushed forward extremely fast and submerged Naruto's body almost instantly. With amazing reflexes and the ability to use such powerful ninjutsu, this is the genius of Konoha village and the Uchiha clan. Looking at Sasuke's appearance on the field, Terumi Mena's eyes were shocked, and at the same time he felt a sense of regret. If the blood successor family in Kirigakure village had not been exterminated by Yagura, perhaps a genius of Sasuke's level would also appear. If Sasuke was recognized as a genius by Mei Terumi, then Naruto wouldn't even have to look at it. Although Terumi Mei had only arrived in Konoha for 2 days, perhaps because of Kakishi's relationship, she knew Naruto's identity early. She knew that he was the son of the 4th Hokage, and that he was the 9th Jinchuriki. You don't need to worry about the latter point, but based on the fact that he is the son of the 4th Hokage, Terumi Mei knows that Naruto must be a genius. The main reason why Terumi Mei had such an idea was because Minato was too good. Chapter 261 Excited Sasuke. The 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. A strong man who truly stood up from the common people without relying on his bloodline. Terumi Mei admired the 4th Hokage very much. During the 3rd Ninja War, she had heard of the name Yellow Flash. Even though she herself has now become a Kage level powerhouse, Terumi Mei still does not look down upon Minato at all. Terumi Mei knows very well that the reason why she can become a strong Kage level relies more on her own blood successor limits. If she does not use the blood successor limits, she can only be regarded as a stronger one. Just an elite jounin point. It was precisely because of Minato's excellence that Terumi Mei thought that Naruto would be a genius. If we follow the plot in the original work, Naruto did not act like a genius before he grew up. Not only did he not look like a genius, he was even treated as a being who was behind the wheel. But now, it turns out that Terumi Mei's guess was not wrong. Today's Naruto is indeed a true genius, a genius who is not weaker than Sasuke. Point on the field, Naruto's figure was completely submerged in the Red Sea of Fire, but at this moment point boom, an invisible energy suddenly appeared, and the red flames, that were originally in the shape of a fireball suddenly spread like a tide in all directions, and then a blonde boy revealed himself. It was Naruto. Point I saw an invisible air current surrounding Naruto's arms at this time. These were wind attribute chakras. Although Naruto is young today, his control over chakra is not weak at all. Whether it is changes in form or properties, he has mastered control of them all. Wind, escape, wind blade. At this moment, Naruto waved his hands, and instantly 2 invisible wind blades appeared and struck Sasuke in front. This is Muji Ninjutsu, Terumi Mei exclaimed in her heart when she saw this scene. You must know that in the 1000-year history of the ninja world, most ninjutsu requires seals to be completed, even if there are some special ninjutsu or some special blood inheritance limits that can release ninjutsu without seals. But there is no doubt that the number of owners of both this special ninjutsu and the special blood succession limit is extremely small. Point take Terumi Mei, who has 2 blood inheritance limits. For example, whether it is boiling release or melting release, it requires sealing when using it. Point. Although the ninjutsu used by Naruto just now is not very powerful, as long as it does not require sealing, it can still play some special effects at critical times. Compared to Terumi Mei's shock, others on the scene were relatively calm. They had seen the Muji Wind Blade that Naruto had just used many times. In fact, except for Kei and Kunoe, those present had more or less mastered several Muji ninjutsu. especially for Naraku himself, except for A-level and above level ninjutsu, which also require seals. Naraku can basically achieve the release of no seals for other ninjutsu at this time point. Naruto's move was taught by him, including the Muji ninjutsu mastered by Kakashi and others, which were all created by Naraku himself. However, the idea of releasing Muji ninjutsu was not Naraku's idea. In fact, he was able to create Muji ninjutsu, which he also learned from the Rasengan. All Naraku could say about this was that his brother-in-law was a true genius. On the field, Sasuke easily dodged the wind blade released by Naruto, and then the two fought again. Now both of them have become serious, and they are doing their best for each other. But Naruto and Sasuke grew up together. They had dueled together countless times before, and they knew the strength of both sides very well. Therefore, it was difficult to determine the outcome of this competition in a short period of time, and the contest between the two reached a deadlock point. Swish. At this moment, an Anbu personnel wearing a white cat face mask appeared behind Shisu. "Mr. Minister." The respectful voice reached Shisu's ears. Yes, Shisu at this time had been appointed as the minister of Anbu by Tsunade. As for the original minister Kakashi, he became an ordinary Jonin leader. Today Shisu is enough to take on this position in terms of strength and qualifications. Then the Anbu personnel whispered in Shisu's ear for a while. After Shisu's expression changed slightly, he turned his head and glanced at Itachi beside him, then raised his head and nodded to Naraku, then walked up to Kakashi and Terumi Mei. "Mizukage-sama, Hokage-sama invites you." Terumi Mei was not surprised when she heard this. In fact, as a shadow of a village, the reason why she had time to watch the competition between Sasuke and Naruto was just because she was waiting for a result. Waiting for the result she expected. Then she left here with Shisu and rushed towards the Hokage building. But just after Shisu and the others left, another Anbu officer appeared. Kakashi and Naraku looked at each other, smiled helplessly, and then stood up, leaving behind a shadow clone each, and left. At this time, it seemed like something big was going to happen in the village. Not only Naraku and Kakashi, but also Kei and Kurenoi were called away. At this time, the battle between Sasuke and Naruto on the field has come to an end. Ha. 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 At this time, both of them were breathing heavily, especially Sasuke, whose face was covered with large beads of sweat. Although he doesn't want to admit it, Sasuke is obviously inferior to Naruto in terms of physical fitness and chakra volume. Haha, Sasuke, it seems that I'm going to win this competition. You can continue to study at the Ninja Academy. At this moment, Naruto's slightly mocking voice came again. Idiot. Neru, what are you talking about? A trace of doubt flashed across Sasuke's immature face. Naruto said something similar when the competition just started, but he didn't pay attention to it at the time. But now he seems to have realized something. Sasuke, defeat you. As long as I defeat you, I can graduate from the Ninja Academy ahead of schedule, and then I can go out to perform missions. Naruto raised his hands and quickly formed seals while speaking. Wind. Escape. A big breakthrough. Then he opened his mouth and let out a violent blast of wind. The strong wind roared past, rushing towards Sasuke in front of him at great speed. But at this time, Sasuke seemed to be stunned. Beat me and graduate early. Sasuke murmured softly. As a highly intelligent person, he understood the whole story instantly, and then thought about how so many people suddenly watched his competition with Naruto today. If Naruto can graduate early by defeating me, then similarly, I just need to defeat him. Sasuke's eyes gradually became excited, but soon he felt a strong wind coming. There was no fear in Sasuke's eyes, and his dark eyes were full of excitement. The next moment, Sasuke was seen kicking on the ground, and then following the fierce wind, his body quickly retreated. Chapter 262 Kaguya, Hinata, Perfect Combination. In the Kingdom of Wind, there is a deserted area near Sand Hidden Village. It looks very desolate and uninhabited. But this is only a superficial phenomenon. Just underground in this area is a fully equipped laboratory. At this time, there was a red-haired girl wearing glasses and a boy of similar age in the laboratory. The boy had short orange hair. The two of them were Xiangling and Chanwu. At this time, Xiang's phosphorus complexion was rosy and his body had long since recovered. Although they were both children taken in by Orochimaru, Kozo and Jugo were not very familiar with each other. In addition, Jugo would often go berserk because he could not control his power, so Kozo had no contact with him. That's too much. And now the reason why they are gathered together is just to welcome one person. That person is Orochimaru. At this time, you can see that there is a man who is a few years older than them standing next to the two of them. It is Kabuto. Point at this time, Kabuto was seen standing in front of a door with an excited face, still muttering something in his mouth. We will finally succeed, Orochimaru-sama. Compared to the excitement on Kabuto's face, Kabuto's eyes averted, especially when his eyes fell on the room in front of him. His body even trembled slightly. As a pure-blooded Uzumaki clan member, although Kaguya did not use Kaguya's heart eye at this time, she still felt an unusually powerful aura in the room due to her strong natural senses. This breath is full of cold air, which makes people shudder. Among the three, only Chango remained silent. His expression was as usual, his eyes were complicated, and he didn't know what he was thinking. In fact, for Jugo, he doesn't know how to face Orochimaru occupying Kimimura's body now. Normally speaking, Orochimaru possesses Kimimura's body, which is equivalent to killing Kimimura. As a good friend, Jugo should regard Orochimaru as his enemy. In fact, Jugo did think this way at the beginning, and he did it this way, so when he saw Orochimaru changing his body for the first time, he went berserk and launched a violent attack on him. It's just that Orochimaru is too strong, and even if Jugo goes berserk, he can't be his opponent. Jugo also thought about slowly improving his strength, and when the time came, he would kill Orochimaru to avenge Kimimura. However, as time passed, his mood became gradually complicated, and another thought appeared in his mind. Kimimura is Jugo's spiritual sustenance, and Orochimaru is Kimimura's spiritual sustenance. At this time, Jugo wanted to use Orochimaru occupying Kimimura's body as his spiritual sustenance. After all, it possesses Kimimura's body, which can be regarded as allowing Kimimura to survive in another way. Just when Zanwu didn't know how to choose, suddenly a tall figure walked out of the darkness and appeared in front of several people. He has long white hair, a little red cinnabar on his forehead, and a very young face. He is Orochimaru. At this time, Orochimaru seemed to be in a good mood, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, revealing a smile. It's just that this smile looks like a sneer to Xiangling and others. Master Orochimaru. Kabuto took a step forward and spoke respectfully. As he spoke, he raised his head and glanced at Orochimaru's closed eyes, and an unusual expression flashed across his face. As Orochimaru's assistant specially snatched from the Leaf Village, Kabuto's talents in some aspects are not weaker than Orochimaru's own. So Orochimaru didn't hide some things from Kabuto. Of course, he did this just to make Kabuto grow up as soon as possible, so that he could help him. Lord Orochimaru, the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan is so useful. Kabuto continued to speak, his tone revealing an unusual excitement. Well, it seems pretty good. Orochimaru opened his mouth and whispered, then his eyes trembled, and he slowly opened his eyes. The next moment, a shocking scene appeared. Orochimaru's originally light golden pupils had disappeared, replaced by a pair of pale pupils. Suddenly, a strange energy came out from Orochimaru's eyes, and the veins around his eyes were visible to the naked eye, looking a bit ferocious. At this time, Orochimaru's perspective changed drastically. The sight originally blocked by the wall in front penetrated directly through the wall, where Orochimaru saw a ball of light blue energy, and he knew it was a small white snake. Clairvoyance, one of the abilities of Byakugan, can penetrate objects and see the target's meridians and the flow of chakra. Not only the perspective, but also the enhancement of field of vision. Since then, Orochimaru has a 360-degree field of vision with no blind spots. Haha, what a pair of powerful eyes, Orochimaru said with a smile, and then he slowly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the ferocious veins on his face had disappeared. A touch of uncontrollable excitement appeared on Orochimaru's face, and he knew he had succeeded. When he used his Byakugan just now, his body didn't feel a trace of rejection, as if the eyes were his own. The body of the Kaguya clan and the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan fit together perfectly. There is no doubt that Orochimaru's strength has once again been greatly improved with the Byakugan, and there is still a lot of room for improvement in Byakugan's abilities. These are a pair of eyes that are no weaker than the Sharingan, Uzumaki. Naraku. Orochimaru suddenly thought of the red-haired boy for some reason. Then Orochimaru's eyes fell on Xiangling in front, and an idea appeared in his mind. Sensing Orochimaru's gaze, Koru's body trembled a little, but she soon calmed down. Although Koru was afraid of Orochimaru who took him in, he still believed in him deep down in his heart. A strange color flashed in Orochimaru's eyes when he sensed the change in the aromatic phosphorus, and then he turned and walked away. "You guys, please go out with me." The three people who heard this did not hesitate and followed Orochimaru out of the underground laboratory. On the ground, Orochimaru looked at the desolate area around him, and a bold idea appeared in his mind. Tsunagakia Village. I wonder if you would like to change its name. With this thought in his mind, Orochimaru led the three of them and rushed in one direction. Just after a few people left here, a pale figure emerged from the ground, revealing his figure. It was a clone of Beiju, with the body of the Kaguya clan and the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. Orochimaru, you are really surprised, Beiju had a complicated look on his face, but he soon felt relieved. He also knows that he is just a clone, and all he has to do now is pass the news to the main body. But at this moment, Beiju seemed to sense something, and a huge black shadow appeared in front of him. Beiju looked up and saw a huge white bone snake appearing in front of him. Chapter 263. Let me see the true power of the samurai. Boom. Suddenly, a loud noise came from above the laboratory, and there were also a few faint sounds of chewing and struggling, but the sound disappeared soon after. At this moment, Xiangling, who was following Orochimaru, seemed to sense something. She couldn't help but turn her head and glance back, but because the distance was too far, she didn't see anything. Unexpectedly, Xiangling turned his head back and continued to follow Orochimaru. However, she may not have noticed at this time that there was a playful expression on Orochimaru's face. Haha, Beiju, are you using products produced from first generation cells? It's really worth studying. In the Rain Ninja Village, on a tall building made of reinforced concrete, a figure shrouded in pitcher plants suddenly opened his eyes. What's wrong? Black Jew's slightly hoarse voice came out, and he opened his eyes after sensing the abnormality of White Jew. There is news from the clone responsible for monitoring Orochimaru. A completely different tone came from the same body. Orochimaru. Heizetsu didn't care when he heard that it was Orochimaru. Heizetsu didn't pay too much attention to Orochimaru, a research madman. In his opinion, the other person was just better at studying ninjutsu. But what Beiju said next made him instantly interested. He has the body of the Kaguya clan and the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan. Heizetsu's face was filled with shock when he heard this. As the third son of Kaguya, he naturally knew the connection between the Kaguya clan and the Hyuga clan. Black Zetsu's brows gradually wrinkled. He didn't expect Orochimaru to be able to do this. Fairy eyes plus fairy body. Black has absolutely no idea where Orochimaru will go in the end. Uchiha, Madara, Orochimaru, Hamura, and Hagoromo. Haha, no matter who it is, they can't stop me from resurrecting my mother, Heniju said secretly in his heart. But at this moment, he seemed to sense something and turned his head to look in one direction, where a woman with short blue hair appeared pushing a wheelchair. The woman in blue wears a black robe with red blood clouds printed on it. As for the person sitting in the wheelchair, there was a red-haired man. It was Nagato. And as for Konan who was pushing the wheelchair, it can be seen that Nagato has changed greatly at this time compared to before. The original skinny body has disappeared, replaced by a body that looks like a normal person. In Nagato's eyes, the purple samurai eyes exuded a heart-stopping coldness. At this moment, the stable space around him suddenly shook, and then a figure wearing an orange mask appeared in front of Nagato. It was Obito. Under the orange mask, the scarlet eyes stared straight into the purple samurai eyes without any fear. Long time no see, Mr. Madara. Like tender pain, a cold and ruthless voice came from Nagato's mouth. Yeah, long time no see, Nagato. The two greeted each other like old friends. At this time, Obito had already sensed a very familiar force in Nagato's body, which was the first generation cells. Obito's face changed slightly under the mask, and his eyes looked towards Zetsu unnoticeably, but he soon returned to normal. For Zetsu, Obito no longer had any trust in his heart at this time. In fact, Obito was aware of what Ju was doing behind his back, but he didn't expose the other person. In the final analysis, he and Z were just using each other. Z thought she was using him as a pawn, but he didn't think the same thing. As for Nagato's improved strength, Obito didn't pay too much attention. Although those eyes are very powerful, they are not Nagato's own after all. Even though Nagato's strength has improved a bit now, Obito still has full confidence in suppressing him. Obito's eyes trembled slightly, and violent pupil power emanated from his eyes. He decided to test Nagato's strength, and also understand the ability of these purple Samsara eyes. The next moment, 2 lines of blood and tears fell from Obito's eyes, and then a rich blue light appeared on him. The blue light grew rapidly and soon formed a tall giant 10 meters long. The blue giant is nearly 10 meters long and holds a long blue knife in each hand. It looks very intimidating. Obito, Ju, Giantso on the side, let out an exclamation. He wanted to speak to stop Obito, but in the end he didn't. He knew that Obito just wanted to test Nagato's strength, and he was also a little curious about it. When Konan, who was pushing a wheelchair, saw this scene, her expression changed instantly. Just when she was about to take action, Nagato spoke, "Leave it to me, Xiaonan." After hearing this, Xiaonan hesitated slightly, and then she chose to step aside. Guy. At this moment, a sound broke through the air, and the blue giant raised his right hand, holding a long knife, and slashed at Nagato in front of him. Then a sword beam emitting blue light was struck, and the blue sword beam tore through the air, and fell rapidly towards Nagato. At this time, Nagato seemed not to have seen the huge sword light. There was no trace of panic on his calm face, but he slowly raised his right hand and pointed it forward. The next moment, 4 cold and ruthless words slowly came out of his mouth. Shinra. Tenseng. Just. For a moment, the air suddenly rioted, and a strong airflow appeared and blew towards the blue sword light. Boom. The moment the airflow came into contact with the blue sword light, the sword light was blown backwards and flew out. Obito, who was wrapped up by Susanoo, didn't show any surprise when he saw this, but just when he was about to control Susanoo to swing the sword again. Boom. The violent airflow actually fell directly on the tall Susan. In just an instant, Obito felt a huge force. Even the huge Susan could not resist this violent force. In just an instant, he was directed towards flying backwards. When Konan, who was watching the battle on the sidelines, saw this, the tense expression on his face relaxed a little. Although he believed in Nagato's strength, Obito's strength was also unfathomable now, and Konan believed that she was no match for him. The Zetsu on the other side looked indifferent. He knew that it was just Obito's simplest test, and the next step would be a real battle between the two. Boom. The guess was definitely not wrong, but the next moment, the huge Susan stood in front of Nagato again, as if the blow just now did not cause any harm to him. Then under his control, Susanoo raised the long sword and struck at Nagato again. "Let me see the true power of the Rinnegan." A hoarse voice came from Obito's mouth. "As you wish. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264 The Bond Between Ming's Duo. Konoha Village, inside the number 1 training ground. At this time, the battle between Naruto and Sasuke was over. Perhaps Naruto was lucky, and he won this time. At this time, he looked at Sasuke opposite with a proud face. His expression seemed to say something. "Look Sasuke, I'm stronger." Compared to Naruto's pride, Sasuke looked a little disappointed at this time. Although the expression on his face was indifferent, as if he didn't care about the result of the competition at all, his unwilling eyes still betrayed him. Although Sasuke had lost to Naruto in previous competitions, this time it was very different. This time he lost the competition and had to continue studying at the Ninja Academy, while Naruto could graduate early. Thinking of this, Sasuke became more and more unwilling, and suddenly a strange energy emerged from his body. Everyone watching the battle instantly noticed Sasuke's change, especially Itachi, who was about to rush in Sasuke's direction in a flash. But the next moment, his figure was blocked by a red-haired figure, which was Naraku's shadow clone. The shadow clone shook his head slightly at him, and he had already guessed the next change in Sasuke. At this time Itachi also calmed down, and looked at Sasuke on the field with a complicated look on his face. At this time, Naruto seemed to have noticed something strange about Sasuke, just when he took a step forward to check on Sasuke's condition. Sasuke in front of him suddenly raised his head, and the next moment a pair of scarlet eyes appeared, staring directly at Naruto. Sharingan. Naruto was not surprised by the appearance of the Sharingan. In fact, Sasuke had opened the Sharingan long before this, so Naruto was no stranger to these eyes. What are you doing, Sasuke? If you are not convinced, then we will have a fight. Naruto thought Sasuke was just a little unconvinced. But the next moment, a scene that surprised him appeared. The black Magatama in Sasuke's scarlet eyes began to rotate. In just a moment, one black Magatama turned into two. Sasuke's Sharingan has advanced, and you can see that both of his eyes are double Magatama Sharingan at this time. The advancement of Sharingan boosted Sasuke's confidence. He looked at Naruto with full confidence. Naruto, let's. Well, just when Sasuke was about to speak and let Naruto fight him, a strong headache hit him, and almost instantly, Sasuke fainted. Swish. At this moment, Itachi, who had been paying attention to Sasuke, rushed out immediately. With his strength, he came to Sasuke's side in just the blink of an eye, but at this moment he stopped. In his sight, a boy with blonde hair reached out to catch Sasuke, who was about to fall to the ground. It was Naruto. And at this time, Naruto's face was anxious and full of worry. Congratulations, Sasuke, you already have a real bond. Itachi was happy in his heart, not because his brother opened the double Magatama Sharingan, but because of the friendship between Sasuke and Naruto. Just like him and Shizu, Naraku and Kakashi, and Gai, Naruto and Sasuke have also formed an inseparable bond. Naraku and Kakashi on the side were also smiling, and Naruto and Sasuke seemed to have their former shadows on their bodies. Itachi then returned to the Uchiha clan's territory with a fainted Sasuke. Then Naraku's shadow clone also explained to Naruto why Sasuke fainted. Just because his body was overloaded, Sasuke himself had exhausted all the chakra and eye power in his body when he competed with Naruto. Although in this state, Sasuke made a breakthrough and opened the twin Magatama Sharingan. His body was not strong enough to support the consumption of the twin Magatama Sharingan, so the scene just happened. After listening to the shadow clone's explanation, Naruto's worried expression softened slightly, but something was still wrong. Naraku knew that he was still a little worried about Sasuke, but then he said a word and diverted Naruto's attention. When Sasuke wakes up, his strength will be greatly improved. What? Improve your strength? Naruto's expression changed instantly when he heard this. The worried look disappeared and was replaced by a look of determination. He glanced up at Naraku, but then lowered his head. Yo, Z, if this is the case, I can't slack off anymore. I'm going to learn a new ninjutsu from the lustful immortal today. With such words in his mouth, Naruto rushed towards the Senju clan's territory impatiently. It's really Naruto, the shadow clone murmured twice, then raised its feet and followed behind Naruto. Naruto himself learned ninjutsu from him, but Naraku had already passed on all the ninjutsu that Naruto could master at this stage to Naruto, so he proposed to let Naruto and Sasuke graduate early, because apart from actual combat, he felt that there was nothing left to give to Naruto. Because he no longer taught Naruto ninjutsu recently, Naruto set his sights on Jiraiya. Naraku felt that this was not bad. After all, in the entire ninja world, in terms of teaching ability, no one could compare to Jiraiya, who had many high disciples. No one can match this. In the Uchiha clan's clan, not long after returning to the clan, Sasuke woke up. He rubbed his swollen head and gradually recalled what had happened before. After thinking that he had lost the opportunity to graduate early, he was still a little unwilling, but then he thought about his Sharingan breaking through to the double Magatama. He still felt some comfort in his heart, and his mood gradually relaxed a little. Naruto, I will not lose to you. Sasuke clenched his small fists and thought to himself, boom. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a pain in his forehead, and a black shadow appeared in front of his eyes. It was Itachi. Itachi reached out and flicked Sasuke's forehead and said with a hint of blame, "The Sharingan just broke through and consumed a lot of your mental energy. You won't be able to use chakra for 2 days." "I know, brother," Sasuke said with a smile, his eyes falling on Itachi, full of happiness. At this time, Sasuke has not experienced the misfortune in the original work. His parents are still alive and his brother is by his side. His life is very complete and happy, and he has no regrets. Itachi looked at the happy Sasuke with a smile on his lips, but at this moment, a figure appeared in the darkness. Itachi knew that this was coming to him, so he didn't hesitate, and after a brief greeting with Sasuke, he left here. Not long after, Itachi appeared in the Hokage building together with the man from before. Chapter 265. Unify the entire ninja world. Konoha village, inside the Hokage building. Today's Hokage building looks very lively. There are countless ninjas gathered around the whole building, and there are also several figures wearing masks hiding in the corners, observing the surrounding situation. At this time, there were also more than a dozen figures in the building. Fugaku, Hizu, and the heads of the 3 wealthy families of Konoha all came here in person today. Not only them, but also the heads of the 3 major families of Ino and Shikapun, as well as some families in Konoha village sent representatives to appear here. It can be said that the power of these families represents the backbone of the entire Konoha village. As for the top powers in the village, Naraku, Kakashi, Kei, Shisu, Itachi, and others are also here. Kick. At this moment, there was a sound of footsteps, and then a figure wearing a tea green outer coat appeared in everyone's sight. The person who came was none other than the 5th Hokage, Senju Tsunade. Behind Tsunade was also a familiar tall figure with unruly long white hair and red paint on his face. He was none other than Jiraiya, one of the 3 ninjas. When Tsunade came here, she stood directly in the middle, with a heavy expression on her face, and said nothing. The people who can appear here at this time are all people whom Tsunade trusts. In fact, with Tsunade's efforts, today's Konoha village has long been twisted into a rope, and there are no longer any roots under the darkness, and there are other forces. As Hokage, she controls all the power of the village. Except for Naraku and a few others, everyone in the building at this time was the powerful people of some families, and their observation of the situation in the ninja world was more obvious. Especially with Tsunade's recent series of actions, they have realized something. First, he sent people to kill the 4th Kazekage of Sunagakure village, then formed an alliance with Sunagakure village, and later intervened in the power competition in Kirigakure village. Tsunade's ambition has long been exposed. Although Tsunade's approach is somewhat dangerous, even if she is not careful, Konoha village will become the target of public criticism. Just like during the 3rd Ninja World War, it will be jointly attacked by other ninja villages. But after all, Tsunade is the shadow of a village, and they cannot change Tsunade's will. Another point is that they also long for true peace in their hearts. So for Tsunade, they still choose to support her, even if war breaks out again. At this moment, Tsunade looked around with her serious gaze. When it fell on everyone, they all had a determined look on their face. Only Naraku looked at Tsunade with a gentle smile on his lips in response to this. Tsunade also raised the corners of her mouth slightly, revealing a smile. Naraku, Kakashi, Kei, Shisu, Itachi, as well as future Naruto and Sasuke, each of them has extremely powerful training talents. It is these people who gave Tsunade confidence and made her determined. Let the entire ninja world have true peace. Naraku unconditionally supports Tsunade's idea of unifying the ninja world. In fact, even if Tsunade doesn't do it, he may do it in the future. Due to the terrain, environment, and resources, it is impossible for the 5 great ninja villages to remain in peace forever. Even in the future during the 4th Ninja War, due to pressure from Obito's side, the 5 major ninja villages will temporarily unite together, but this alliance is only temporary. When the powerful external enemies disappear, what remains is civil war. Therefore, it is necessary to unify the ninja world. What's more, with the current strength of Konoha village, it is not difficult to complete this matter. The first is Sunagakure village, which has lost the 4th Kazekage. They have already formed an alliance with Konoha village. All they need to do next is to exert pressure and make it a satellite of the Fire Country. Kirigakure village has also formed an alliance with Konoha. Before Tsunade came here, it had already held a negotiation with Terumi Mei. Although it costs him money, it finally agreed to Tsunade's plan. At this time, Terumi Mei was sitting alone in the Hokage's office on the second floor, with a heavy face, and she didn't know what she was thinking. It's not an easy thing to convince those old guys, Terumi Mei murmured in her mouth. However, true peace is really desirable. With that said, Terumi Mei got up and left the office, returning to a hotel in Konoha Village Point. At this time, in the Hokage building, Tsunade had already expressed her thoughts to everyone that she wanted to change the structure of the entire Ninja World Point to unify the entire Ninja World Point. Although they had been prepared in their hearts, when Tsunade actually said it, most of the people present were still extremely shocked. I support Hokage-sama's idea. Since the first generation established Konoha Village, in just a few decades, 3 ninja wars have broken out, resulting in countless casualties. I don't want to see such a scene again. At this moment, an older looking ninja stepped forward and spoke in a heavy tone. Everyone turned to look at him and saw a look of determination on his face. We, the Uchiha clan, are willing to fully support Hokage-sama to unify the ninja world and bring true peace to everyone. Fugaku, who was standing in front, also spoke out. In today's Konoha village, the Uchiha clan has already truly integrated into the village. Not only was Shizu appointed as the head of the Anbu, Itachi was also highly valued in the village. Therefore, Fugaku supports Tsunade unconditionally. The Hyuga clan is also willing to follow Lord Hokage, just to usher in true peace. After Fugaku expressed his stance, Nizu also sided with Tsunade Point. Although today's Hyuga clan does not have members who hold important positions in the village like the Uchiha clan, Tsunade has never treated the Hyuga clan badly. Hinata Kori of his own clan used to serve as captain of the Anbu, but just yesterday he was suddenly promoted to deputy minister of the Anbu, and his younger brother Hisashi was also appointed as the dean of the Ninja Academy. Although the Dean of the Ninja Academy may not seem to have a big official position, it is actually a very important position in the village. As the Dean of the college, Hisashi can easily contact every student. If a good seedling is discovered in advance and cultivated, its future growth will be somewhat related to the Hyuga clan. Therefore, Hinata also supports Tsunade unconditionally. Later, after Nizu expressed his stance, the 3 major families of Nara, Yamanaka, and Akimichi also spoke to support Tsunade. Uchiha, Hinata, Nara, Yamanaka, Akimichi. These 5 major families can be said to be the largest families in Konoha village. After seeing that they all agreed, others no longer considered it. They all expressed their support for any decision Tsunade made. In fact, for the leaders of these families, they have some selfish motives in their hearts. Take the Uchiha clan as an example. The current Uchiha may be regarded as the most wealthy family in Konoha village, but if Konoha village unifies the ninja world in the future, then Uchiha may become the most wealthy family in the ninja world. Chapter 266 Fusion Eyes. Inside the Hokage building, without exception, everyone chose to support Tsunade's idea of unifying the ninja world. They all know that no matter whether Konoha village finally unifies the ninja world, the current ninja world will usher in new changes. Uchiha, Hinata, my name will definitely become famous in the ninja world again. Fugaku and Hizu thought secretly in their hearts. As Uchiha and Hinata from wealthy families, what they pursue may not be power, but they must be famous. However, Fugaku and Nizu also know that they must be moderate in their pursuit of fame and fortune, otherwise they will eventually perish. Afterwards, they discussed in the building for a while, and when the sun rose to its highest point, Tsunade led everyone out of the building. Lord Hokage, the ninjas around the building all bowed and saluted after seeing Tsunade, their faces full of respect. These people are all civilian ninjas in the village, and have no family influence. Tsunade also values them very much. Who knows if there will be another Namake's Minato in there. At this moment, a strange energy rose, but it dissipated in an instant. Tsunade nodded imperceptibly at this. In the darkness, 4 masked figures appeared around the crowd. It could be seen that chakra was surging on their bodies at this time, and a mark was formed on their hands. This is a simple isolation formation that can isolate sound and sight within the barrier. The Hokage building is located in the center of Konoha village, where there are not only ninjas, but also some civilians. Tsunade didn't want the war to spread to civilians, so she did this. In this ninja world, the civilians of Konoha village are the happiest among the 5 major ninja villages. Even during the Third Ninja War, when Konoha village faced attacks from several major ninja villages at the same time, the civilians of Konoha village did not affected by the war. Most of the casualties were ninjas, and it's the same this time. Tsunade will also not let the civilians in the village be harmed. After the isolation formation was fully deployed, Tsunade once again announced to everyone her intention to unify the ninja world, which shocked most civilian ninjas. However, as ninjas, especially civilian ninjas like them, they do not have a high say in the village. They know very well that all they have to do is obey orders with all their strength. In the evening, the sun had already set, and the darkness of night gradually spread. In the Hokage's office, Tsunade sat at the desk, holding the table with both hands, and lowering her head, wondering what she was thinking. At this time, she has been sitting here all afternoon, thought Tsunade, although she had already planned today's decision. When she actually decided to take this step, she felt tremendous pressure. You must know that, although her original intention was to achieve true peace in the ninja world, in other words, it was her, Tsunade, the 5th Hokage of Konoha village, who provoked the 4th Ninja War. She didn't know how many people would hate her for actively provoking a war. Not only that, but her decision today was contrary to the ideas of her grandfather, Senju Hashirama. So Tsunade was under tremendous pressure at this time. For a moment, even she was a little unbearable, and then the current scene appeared. At this time, outside the office door, the tall Jiraiya, Naraku with short red hair, and Kakashi wearing a black mask stood outside the door with calm expressions. As for everyone else, they have already gone down to make arrangements. Now that Tsunade has announced this matter to everyone, the village has responded quickly. At this time, the heads of the major families are already gathering their troops. Among them, Shisu, as the Enbu minister, was even more busy. Once a large number of ninjas left the village, their Anbu's guard work would become heavier, and all of this required Shisu to make arrangements squeak. At this moment, the door of the office opened, and Tsunade slowly walked out. At this time, her face was full of determination, and there was nothing strange at all. Kakashi, I'm going to trouble you over at Sunagakure village. Tsunade turned to Kakashi beside her and said, she has already issued an order to attack Sunagakure village tomorrow morning. Kakashi will lead 100 elites to Sunagakure village to force them to voluntarily become a tributary of the Fire Country. Of course, success is the best, but if Sunagakure village is not willing, Tsunade will not be polite to them. When the army comes to the border, some things will not be what they are willing to do. Yes, Hokage-sama. Kakashi bowed slightly to Tsunade, lowered his head and said. In response, Tsunade reached out and patted his shoulder, then turned to look at Naraku, who was standing aside. Come on, the future of the ninja world is yours, Lord Hokage. At this moment, Shikaku's voice came. As Konoha's military advisor, he still had many things to report to Tsunade. Tsunade slightly at this, and then she turned around and walked into the office again. Jiraiya also followed directly without hesitation. Outside the office, Naraku and Kakashi looked at each other and then left with a wry smile. Late at night, in the land of the Thousand Hands clan, call. Kushina breathed a sigh of relief, and the green chakra surrounding her hand dissipated. Standing in front of her at this time was Naraku sitting cross-legged. You could see that Naraku's eyes were closed tightly, and there were bright red blood stains under his eyes. Thank you for your hard work, sister. Leave the rest to me. Go and rest quickly, Naraku said with a smile. The fusion of Sharingan may not be as simple as you think. You should pay more attention. If you find any abnormality, you must notify me or Sister Tsunade in time, Kushina said in a worried tone. Just now, Naraku fused his 2 pairs of eyes together with the help of Kushina. The whole fusion process seemed to go very smoothly until the end. Kushina only helped Naraku stop the bleeding a little. But even so, Kushina was still a little worried. She had never heard of 2 pairs of eyes merging into one eye before. However, Naraku didn't care about Kushina's worries. At this time, he could clearly feel a powerful force condensing in his eyes. The fusion of Sharingan is not as simple as 1 plus 1. Naraku feels that his eye power will usher in a huge breakthrough point, and Naraku felt that the eyes fused very quickly and it might not even take a day. The Eternal Manjaki Sharingan is really exciting. Then Kushina wrapped a white bandage around Naraku's eyes, and after giving Naraku a few words, she got up and left. After Kushina left, Naraku went directly to the bed to lie down and rest. Chapter 267. Some people are really brave. A speechless night. A golden sun slowly rose from the east, and the dazzling sunlight shone into the room through the window, and Naraku also woke up. As expected, the fusion has been completed. Feeling the pupil power in his eyes that had stabilized, Naraku raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a smile. Then he walked to a mirror and reached out to remove the gauze wrapped around his eyes. What appeared in the mirror at this time was a handsome young man with short red hair that made him look very energetic. The pupils exploded, and Naraku's dark eyes changed instantly. The scarlet pupils exuded a mysterious aura, and there was still a golden six-pointed star pattern above the pupils. After the eyes were fused, there was no obvious change in appearance, except that the golden six-pointed star suddenly became brighter the next moment. Naraku's eyes trembled slightly, and then the scarlet eyeballs disappeared, and his eyes returned to normal point. Although there was no change in appearance, Naraku could feel that his pupil power had been greatly improved, and his already blurry vision became clearer. Now that the eye problem is solved, let's expand our territory now, Naraku murmured softly. Suddenly, Naraku seemed to sense something, and suddenly turned his head to look out the window, where a figure wearing an animal mask appeared. It was the guard of the tribe. Naraku noticed that the guard was holding a rolled up scroll in his hand. After realizing that the guard was looking for him, Naraku stepped out of the room. Lord Naraku. The guard bowed slightly after seeing Naraku, and then handed him the scroll in his hand. Although Naraku does not hold any position in the village now, most people in the village still respect him. Naraku's deeds of severe injuring the fourth Raikage a few years ago had been announced to the public by Tsunade a long time ago, in order to increase Naraku's prestige in the village. Naraku could understand this. He knew that Tsunade was paving the way for him. After Naraku reached out and took the scroll from the guard's hand, the other party dodged and left. At this time, he was in the territory of the Thousand Hands clan. Naraku had personally arranged various barriers here, so it was very safe here. I'm here to live, Naraku murmured softly, and then he opened the scroll directly. After reading the contents, Naraku showed a playful expression on his face. Naraku guessed right. He was indeed here to live. The scroll did not record his mission, but a letter of dismissal. The corners of Naraku's lips raised slightly. Some people are really brave. As he said that, he disappeared from the spot in a flash. At the same time, hundreds of people gathered in an open space near the Hokage building, and the one standing at the front was Kakashi in a ninja uniform. The people behind him are all the elites of the village. It can be seen from the patterns on the clothes that there are Uchiha, Hinata, and several other family members. These are the elites of each family, and everyone's strength is at the lowest special Jounin level. Just after everyone gathered, Tsunade and Jiraiya also rushed over, and then the team was appointed as the vanguard, and Kakashi was appointed as the captain, and several others were appointed as deputy captains. After Tsunade's brief speech, Kakashi took the team and set off in a mighty manner. The target is Tsunagakure village. Looking at the backs of Kakashi and others leaving, Tsunade's eyes were a little complicated. Don't worry, the fourth Kazakage has been taken away by the Akatsuki organization. Only Granny Chiyo and the others cannot stop Kakashi. Jiraiya, who noticed Tsunade's abnormal mood, said slowly, kindness. Tsunade slightly at this. Normally, Tsunagakure village today does not have high-end combat power, and it is indeed impossible to stop Kakashi and others. However, for some reason, Tsunade is still a little worried at this time. She always felt that Kakashi and others' actions this time would not go too smoothly. But in the end, she didn't think much about it, because Kakashi had already mastered the Flying Thunder God technique at this time, and even if something unexpected happened, he would report it to her in advance. With this thought in their hearts, Tsunade and Jiraiya returned to the Hokage's office together. Although the two of them didn't sleep last night, there was no look of fatigue on their faces at their level. Missing a night's rest won't make any difference. Although there were hundreds of people moving together, Kakashi and others were still very fast, and they appeared at the entrance of Konoha village in a short while. Then he rushed towards the border of the fire country without any hesitation. At the same time. Not long after Kakashi and the others left the village, a red-haired figure also appeared at the entrance of Konoha village. It was Naraku. It seems Kage and the others have already set off. After feeling the familiar aura getting further and further away from him, Naraku knew that Kakashi and the others had left the village. Then Naraku flashed and rushed in the same direction, the land of rain. At this time, the discussion between Obito and Nagato has ended. Obito, Zetsu, and Nagato stood together and discussed the next action. It can be seen that the tall building originally made of concrete and steel has been razed to the ground, and several large pits have appeared around it. These were all affected by the aftermath of the battle between Obito and Nagato. Everyone in Ninja Village had long been alarmed by the huge movement. If Xiaonan hadn't come forward to comfort them, a riot might have broken out in Ninja Village by now. Whether it was Obito or Nagato, the two of them had some simple understanding of each other's strength through the battle just now. After the trial, they resumed their status as allies. At this time, they were discussing when to implement the plan to arrest the tailed beast. Obito's opinion is to start now. He believes that with the current strength of him and Nagato, almost no one in the entire ninja world, except Konoha village, can stop them. So, even if they openly try to snatch the tailed beast now, it's not impossible. He had absolutely no objection to this. He also wanted the plan to start as soon as possible and release his mother as soon as possible. However, Nagato was a little hesitant. It wasn't that he didn't want to start planning as soon as possible, but before that, he had one more thing to do. That is to find Uzumaki Naraku and take back Yahiko's body. At that time, he controlled Pain's 6 paths to fight Naraku. After being defeated by him, the bodies of the other 5 paths were destroyed by Naraku. Only the heavenly path created using Yahiko's body was preserved, but his body also fell into Naraku's hands in Nagato's heart. Yahiko is undoubtedly the most important, and it is impossible for him to let Yahiko's body remain in Naraku's hands. He was going to retrieve Yahiko's body. Chapter 268 Orochimaru who wants to be the 5th Kazekage. In the Rain Ninja Village, Obito and Zetsu both remained silent regarding Nagato's desire to retrieve Yahiko's body. If they want to recapture Yahiko's body, they must contact Naraku, which may lead to an early war with Konoha village. This is not a situation the two of them want to see. Nagato was also aware of this. He also knew that Yahiko's body was dispensable to Obito and the others. Nagato did not force it, and he himself did not want to ask Obito and others to help him. Then the three of them discussed for a while and decided to split up. Nagato led some people to retrieve Yahiko's body, while Obito led a few people to capture the tailed beast first. After finalizing the action plan, Nagato summoned all Akatsuki organization personnel to gather here. At this time, the members of the Akatsuki organization are not complete, except for a few of them. There are only the immortal duo, Scorpion, Deidara, Kisame Kisaki who defected from Kirigakure village, and one more person, Sarutobi Izune who has the 6 tails sealed in his body. However, at this time, Sarutobi Yiming had already let Obito control him, and he had no plans to release him in the short term. Once everyone arrived, they immediately split up. Among them, Nagato led the immortal duo in common, while the remaining Deidara and Scorpion formed a team with Obito. As for the remaining dried persimmon Kisame, Obito assigned him a special mission, which was to let him sneak into the Iwa Ninja village to find out where the 5-tailed Jinchuriki was. Then they split up directly. Konan stayed in the Rain Ninja village to guard the base camp, while Nagato led the immortal duo towards the far country. Obito, on the other hand, took Scorpion and Deidara and set off. Their target was the Suna Ninja village in the one-tailed Shukaku, the country of wind. Sand Ninja village. In the Kazekage building, Granny Chiyo's face was frosty and extremely ugly at this time. Next to her, an old man with white hair also looked unkind, and there were several figures beside the two of them. The elite ninja of their Sand Ninja village was responsible for protecting Chiyo, who was the acting Kazekage. Mother-in-laws, however, if you look carefully, you will find that these people have nervous faces at this time, and their bodies are tense and ready to deal with emergencies. Whether it was Granny Chiyo or these sand ninjas, the reason why they were in such an abnormal situation was because of the person in front of them, a young boy who made them afraid. Haha. Sunagakure Village, once one of the 5 great ninja villages, has long ceased to exist in name only. I hope Granny Chiyo will consider my suggestion carefully. I believe you will give me a satisfactory answer. Right. At this moment, a cold voice sounded on the field. The person who spoke was a young man with long white hair. There were 2 dots of red cinnabar between the young man's eyebrows, but what made people feel strange was the young man's eyes with pale pupils. The boy is Orochimaru. Orochimaru, don't be delusional. I will not agree. Even if you are very powerful, you are only one person. Do you want to start a war with my entire Sunagakure village? Came the angry voice of Granny Chiyo. At this time, her face was filled with anger. She would never agree to Orochimaru's ridiculous proposal under any circumstances. Just now, Orochimaru actually proposed that she abdicate, and then he would become the 5th Kazekage of Sunagakure village, and even planned to give Sunagakure village a new name. Mother-in-law Chiyo refused directly without thinking. If it were for other things, she might make some concessions in order to preserve Sunagakure village, but it was impossible for her to agree to letting Orochimaru do something like the 5th Kazekage. Let the former rebellious ninja of Konoha village be the shadow of their Sunagakure village. If they really do this, then their Sunagakure village will no longer have any face in the entire ninja world. Orochimaru sneered. He was not surprised by Granny Chiyo's rejection. In any abnormal hunting operation, which prey will obey obediently, Orochimaru was not in a hurry. He had enough patience to spend it all with Chiyo and the others. In fact, since he betrayed Konoha village, Orochimaru has always had the idea of establishing a ninja village, but it has always been delayed by some things. But now that Sunagakure village was leaderless, he changed his mind about establishing a ninja village. He wanted to directly take over Sunagakure village, and thus directly control the entire kingdom of Wind Point. Orochimaru wanted to create a country of his own in his pursuit of immortality, which would also be helpful for his various experiments in the future. Orochimaru raised his head and looked forward, his pale pupils exuding a chill. Although with his current strength, he could easily kill Granny Chiyo and all the sand ninja here, he did not choose to do so. If he wants to completely take over Sunagakure village, he can't just rely on some tough methods. Looking around with cold eyes, Orochimaru turned and walked directly out of the building. I will come back in a few days, Granny Chiyo. I hope to get a satisfactory answer by then. After saying these words, Orochimaru left here. At this time, you can see that there are more than a dozen figures lying on the ground in the Hokage building. These were all killed by Orochimaru when he first entered the building. Although these people all had a strength close to that of a Jonin, when they faced Orochimaru, they were killed by him in one blow. If Granny Chiyo hadn't given the order not to attack Orochimaru later, then these people would not be the only ones dying now. After Orochimaru left here, Granny Chiyo's expression instantly became depressed. As the deputy Kazekage of Sand Hidden Village, she had never been threatened like this in her life. If it was just her, then even if she died in battle, Chiyo would never choose to compromise. But things are different now. Chiyo knows in her heart that any decision she makes may kill countless living lives in Sunagakure village, and it is even possible that Sunagakure village will be destroyed. Faced with Orochimaru's naked threat, Chiyo was helpless. For a moment, she didn't know what to do, but at this moment, Ibizo on the side noticed something strange about Chiyo. Today's matter is related to the survival of Sunagakure village, so you must keep it a secret, Ibizo said with a serious look on his face. As he spoke, an invisible aura burst out from his body. As an elder, Ibizo was also a powerful ninja when he was young. Even though he is old now, he still has some strength. Yes, Mr. Elder, everyone said respectfully, and then they skillfully handled the corpses and left here in a flashpoint. Then only Chiyo and Ibizo were left here. Chapter 269 The hard to choose substitute mother-in-law. Elder sister. After everyone left, Ibizo turned to look at Chiyo, his old face full of worry. In fact, both Chiyo and him should have retired and taken care of themselves at this age. But unfortunately, they were still devoting themselves to their village even in their 70s. Looking at his elderly sister, Ibizo suddenly had an idea in his mind. Maybe it's not bad to just let go, he thought secretly in his heart. At this moment, Ibizo seemed to have figured it out, and in his mind he wanted to agree to give up the position of the 5th Kazekage to Orochimaru Point. Although Orochimaru is a rebellious ninja of Konoha village, before that, the 3rd generation Hokage of Konoha village had come to their Tsunagakure village to serve as Anbu minister. It is not impossible for a rebellious ninja to take the position of Kazekage Point, and Orochimaru's appearance just now is very different from before. He looks like a teenager. They can completely give him a forged identity and let him take advantage of him in the name of the descendant of an elder in Tsunagakure village. Shadow position point. As for whether Orochimaru can lead Sand Hidden Village on the right path in the future, that is not something he can worry about. In fact, Ibizo knew very well that at his and Chiyo's current age, if they retired immediately and stopped caring about anything, they could live a few more years. If they continued to worry about Tsunagakure village as they are now, he felt that neither of them could last more than a few years. If he and Chiyo die, Tsunagakure village will also fall into panic, and the situation may not be better than if Orochimaru is the 5th Kazekage. For a moment, Ibizo was shaken in his heart, but in the end he just hid this idea in his heart and did not take the initiative to tell Granny Chiyo Point. Although he is the elder of Tsunagakure village and the younger brother of Chiyo's mother-in-law, Chiyo is now the acting Kazekage of Tsunagakure village. The real decision-making power is still in her hands. No matter what decision Chiyo finally makes, Ibizo everyone will support her. Then Chiyo walked to the Kazekage's office alone. There were 4 photos on the wall of the Kazekage's office. They were the Kazekages of the Tsunagakure village. Chiyo looked up at these 4 photos, his old face full of helplessness. Kazekage, you guys are really a bunch of unreliable guys, Chiyo said with a wry smile. She knew that this time Tsunagakure village had reached a real life and death moment point. In fact, Chiyo had thought about asking for help from Konoha village, which was an ally, but Chiyo knew that Tsunade was now equally ambitious and was also eyeing Tsunagakure village point. Moreover, Chiyo also received some news a few days ago. It seems that Konoha village is ready to take action. At this time, she would not dare to ask Konoha village for help rashly. However, without asking for help from Konoha village, it would be difficult to deal with Orochimaru with the strength of Tsunagakure village itself. Although there are tens of thousands of ninjas in Tsunagakure village, Granny Chiyo knows very well that, even if these tens of thousands of people are gathered together, it will be difficult to cause any substantial harm to Orochimaru. The power possessed by a shadow level warrior is simply not comparable to that of ordinary ninjas. Just like the 3rd Raikage and the 3rd Ninja War, even if Iwa Ninja Village sent tens of thousands of ninjas, they were no match for him. In the end, the reason why the 3rd Raikage died was just to delay for his teammates' time, and finally died of exhaustion point in that battle. If the 3rd Raikage wanted to leave, no one could keep him. Although Granny Chiyo felt that Orochimaru was not as powerful as the 3rd Raikage, she did not dare to gamble at all. Another point is that the tens of thousands of ninjas in Sand Hidden Village are now distributed in various locations in the Kingdom of Wind, and only half of the number of ninjas actually staying in Sand Hidden Village. Is this really the only way to go? Chiyo murmured, and then her eyes dimmed. Like Ibizo, she also had the idea of giving up the position of Kazekage to Orochimaru point despite all the reluctance in her heart. She is just an old woman who is over 70 years old. Although her strength is not bad, she is still far from a real shadow level powerhouse. Powerless, Chiyo felt deeply powerless at this time. Swish. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in the darkness of the office. Sensing the movement, Chiyo instantly restrained his emotions, and there was no trace of expression on his old face. Master Kazekage, this is the news that just came back from the border. Captain Mark asked you to check it yourself. As he spoke, the man in the dark bowed slightly and handed out a scroll in his hand. Chiyo said nothing to this, but just stepped forward and took the scroll in his hand. Seeing that his mission had been completed, the man did not stay any longer and left in a flash. After he left, Chiyo looked around, and after confirming that there was no one else in the office, she reached out and opened the scroll. This, so fast. Chiyo's already adjusted emotions became excited again, and a few new wrinkles appeared on her wrinkled face. Then she sat at her desk without saying a word. After a long time, she stretched out her hand and pulled it in the air. Then there was a creak, and the door that was originally closed was opened, and the white-haired Ibizo stood at the door. Seeing the door being opened, Ibizo stepped in without hesitation. Boom. Just after he came in, the door closed automatically. Elder Sister Ibizo walked to the desk and looked at Chiyo, who was physically and mentally exhausted. His heart was full of worry. At this time, Chiyo did not speak, but just handed him the scroll in his hand. Ibizo reached out to take the scroll and began to read the contents. Konoha village secretly sneaked into the Kingdom of Wind. What are they going to do? Ibizo looked ugly after reading the scroll. The content on the scroll is that Konoha village sent a group of people to sneak into the Kingdom of Wind secretly, and it is suspected that a large number of ninjas are secretly gathering in the Kingdom of Fire. Whether it is Chiyo or Ibizo, they are both people who have experienced several wars. Although the scroll only contains some one-sided information, it is enough to explain everything. Konoha village is preparing to send troops to Sunagakure village. Disaster struck. For a moment, both Ibizo and Chiyo were silent. They didn't know whether Sunagakure village could survive this disaster. There is Orochimaru inside who wants to take control of Sunagakure village, and outside there is Konoha village who wants to invade them. This time, Sunagakure village is truly at a time of life and death. There is no doubt about the strength of Konoha village. Although Konoha village's vitality was severely damaged during many battles during the Third Ninja War, Konoha village has already recovered. Even if Rasa is still alive, Sunagakure village will undoubtedly be fighting against Konoha village with an egg against a stone. For a moment, Grandma Chiyo was a little hard to make a decision. Chapter 270, Guards of Damning Mansion, Sarutobi Clan. The border of the Kingdom of Wind. Yellow sand is flying all over the sky, and the environment of the country of Wind is the worst among the 5 major countries. A middle-aged man with sallow skin and medium build stood on top of a watchtower. His name is Mark, and he is the person in charge of the border of the Kingdom of Wind. At this time, you can see that his face is a little ugly. In fact, each of the 5 major countries will send many spies to lurk in each other's country. Even the weaker Sunagakure village is no exception. Not long ago, the spies from Sunagakure village lurking in the country of fire sent him news that Konoha village secretly sent a team of people to sneak into the country of Wind secretly, and a large number of people were discovered in the country of fire. Ninjas assemble. As the person in charge of the border, Mark noticed something was wrong the moment he received the news, so he immediately passed the information to Granny Chiyo of Sunagakure village. But even so, Mark felt very uneasy at this time. He knew that if the current Konoha village really wanted to attack Sunagakure village, then Sunagakure village would definitely not be able to stop them. Without Alyosha, the strength of Sand Hidden village is not as good as before. If a war really breaks out between the 2 villages, it may not take long for Sand Hidden village to be destroyed by it. Thinking of his newly born son and his elderly parents, Mark felt even worse. He began to panic in his heart. Captain, what's wrong with you? At this moment, another person on the watchtower noticed something strange about Mark and couldn't help but ask. The man's words instantly awakened Mark. His face straightened, and he quickly dispelled the panic in his heart. Then he waved slightly to the young team member in front of him. I'm fine. Please be careful around, and don't let suspicious people enter the border. After a few more words of warning, Mark walked down the watchtower from the side passage. At this time, he only felt a wave of fear in his heart. If he, as the person in charge of the border, felt panic, then what about the others? How many people in the entire Sunagakure village would be afraid of Konoha village's attack? Mark shook his head violently when he thought of this. He didn't dare to continue thinking about it. Whatever, if the sky falls, there will still be someone tall to hold it up. I believe Lord Kazakage and the others will be able to solve all this. Mark comforted in his heart. Then he continued to patrol around. However, he may not have noticed that on the watchtower he just left, the young sand ninja was already lying on the ground, replaced by a black-haired ninja wearing a green vest. There is a red fan pattern printed on the clothes on his body. After confirming that the man in front of him had passed out, He turned to look at the watchtower next to him, and when he raised his head, he met a pair of scarlet eyes. Ha, not bad, Zingayu. The corner of the man's mouth raised slightly, and a smile appeared on his face. Then he and the man opposite made a gesture at the same time. About 2 minutes later, he left the watchtower in a flash. Konoha Village, Hokage's office. There were several figures in the office at this time, and the one sitting at the top was Tsunade, and next to her was Shikaku. The news has been passed to the border of Tsunagakure Village. It's up to Kakashi and the others next, Shikaku said slowly, rubbing his forehead with his hand point. Whether it was Mark or Chiyo, they might not have thought that the news they got was deliberately released by Shikaku and the others. Although this may alert others, it is more likely to make most people panic. In today's Tsunagakure Village, basically most of the ninjas know the news of Rasa's death in the battle. Even though Granny Chiyo has temporarily taken the position of acting Kazakage, it is undeniable that the overall strength of Tsunagakure Village is great. The amplitude has dropped a lot. And today's Konoha villages, needless to say, the first of the 5 villages, Tsunagakure Village, has no confidence that it can compete with Konoha, so Tsunade is also putting pressure on them from the side. At this moment, Tsunade on the side said in a deep voice, "We can't put all our hopes on Kakashi and the others. We still need to continue to dispatch personnel. I need a team of 5,000 people that can be called at any time in case of emergencies need." Shikaku nodded at this. Heiai and Zayo have already set off. I believe they can assemble the personnel within a day. Tsunade nodded slightly when she heard this. Then she stood up and walked to the window, looking at the bustling streets of Konoha Village with complex eyes. "I'm sorry, Grandpa, just think of me as a treasonous person." With this thought in her mind, Tsunade's eyes flashed with a cold light. At the same time, in the Kingdom of Fire, Damning Mansion. Damning Mansion welcomed a special guest today. The daimyo raised his head and looked carefully at the red-haired boy in front of him, with a trace of imperceptible anger flashing in his eyes. The young man was Naraku. He did nothing else just now, and threw the dismissal letter in his hand at the daimyo's face. The daimyo looked ugly. He did not expect that Tsunade would dare to send such an arrogant young man to humiliate him. Yes, it is humiliating. You must know that as a daimyo, he is the supreme leader of the Fire Country, and Konoha Village and Hokage are just villages under his jurisdiction. Even if this village is a ninja village, it still has to be controlled by his daimyo. He just sent the letter of dismissal to Konoha Village to remove Tsunade from the position of Hokage, hoping to use it to beat Tsunade and make her respect him more. But what the daimyo didn't expect was that his move not only failed to defeat Tsunade, but actually angered her. Naraku had guessed the mission assigned to him by Tsunade, since he received the letter of dismissal. In fact, most ninjas still have some respect for the daimyo, the apparent leader of the Fire Country, just like the 3 generations before him. That's why Tsunade sent him here this time. Naraku is not like others. His name is no different from an ordinary person in his eyes. At this time, he had already thought about how to deal with this courageous daimyo. Then he took a step forward and walked towards the daimyo in front. But at this moment, in an instant, more than a dozen figures appeared, standing in front of Naraku, protecting the daimyo behind them. "Sir, you go first. Leave this place to us." The daimyo was a little confused at this time. He never imagined that Naraku would dare to attack him. This has never happened since the establishment of Konoha Village. However, compared to the daimyo who was confused, his guards were obviously more reliable. Not only did they block Naraku immediately, but 2 people appeared and led him back quickly. Haha, the guards of the Damning Mansion, the Sarutobi clan, are really interesting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271, The Newly Developed Ninjutsu. The Kingdom of Fire. Inside the Damning Mansion. Looking at the several figures surrounding him, an intriguing expression appeared on Naraku's face. Although it was not very conspicuous, Naraku still saw a very familiar pattern on these people. It was a pattern made up of 3 months of crescent moons. Naraku was no stranger to this pattern. In fact, most people in the Leaf Village were very familiar with this pattern, because it was the emblem of the Sarutobi clan. Naraku didn't pay much attention to the Sarutobi clan. He only knew that this clan also moved out of Konoha village after the third generation left the village and found a place to settle in the land of fire. But now the daimyo actually chose to let the Sarutobi clan become his exclusive bodyguard, which Naraku did not expect. Looking at the daimyo in front of him who was being led back by two guards at a high speed, a sharp light flashed in Naraku's eyes, and then he stepped out with one foot and walked straight forward. Stop, Naraku Uzumaki, this is the damning mansion. Konoha village has an agreement with the damning mansion. No ninja in the village is allowed to attack the daimyo. Do you want to violate the agreement? At this moment, a cold shout came, and a middle-aged man holding a silver sword took a step forward, stood in front of Naraku and said coldly, his name is Sarutobi. He is the head of the Sarutobi clan's guard in the damning mansion, and he is also the strongest ninja among the guards. Looking at Naraku in front of him, a trace of fear flashed in Sarutobi's eyes. Although they were in large numbers at this time, he knew in his heart that, if the red-haired man in front of him really wanted to attack them, they would not be able to do anything. The power to fight back. A few years ago, Naraku beheaded Dunzo in the Sarutobi clan's territory, severely injuring the third generation. The scene was still in Sarutobi's memory. He never thought that he could stop the other party. The reason why he stood up to stop Naraku at this time was just to gain the trust of the daimyo. From Sarutobi's point of view, now that he was in the daimyo mansion, Naraku would not dare to directly attack the daimyo, no matter what point. But he soon learned that he was wrong. I saw Naraku in front of him, as if he didn't hear his words at all, and continued walking forward. It can be seen that the corners of Naraku's mouth were slightly raised at this time, and he looked at Sarutobi with a smile. In an instant, Sarutobi felt a very strong pressure, and he suddenly became panicked. However, when he soon thought that this was the damning mansion, his panicked mood slowly calmed down. Looking at Naraku who kept walking forward, a trace of struggle flashed in Sarutobi's eyes. He was hesitating whether to take action against Naraku. If we take action, there is no doubt that there is no chance of winning just by relying on these people. But if we don't take action, if the daimyo is really harmed. The little sense of trust between the Sarutobi clan and the daimyo may be gone in an instant. Just when Sarutobi was struggling, his pupils shrank for an instant, and then without any hesitation, he exerted force with both hands, clenched the silver sword in his hand and slashed forward. You can see that there is a red-haired figure just in front of him. It is Naraku. Facing Sarutobi's attack, Naraku didn't seem to make any move, and just stood there with a calm face. However, the next moment, a powerful eye power suddenly burst out, and a scarlet light seemed to flash in his eyes. Almost instantly, a silver long knife stayed in midair. Sarutobi, who was wielding the knife, seemed to have lost consciousness, his eyes were distracted, and his figure froze. Just 2 seconds later, there was a bang, and Sarutobi's tall figure fell directly to the ground. It's just because of Asuma. At this time, Naraku murmured softly. Just now, he used a special illusion to obtain some information from Sarutobi's account. From this information, he learned that the reason why the Sarutobi clan became the guardians of the daimyo now was because of Asuma. As one of the 12 guardian shinobi of the daimyo, he already had close contact with the daimyo, and it was normal for him to seek some benefits for his family. However, Naraku still had doubts at this time. He felt that the reason why the Sarutobi clan approached the daimyo must have another purpose, and it was not just as simple as wanting to develop steadily in the land of fire. Captain. At this moment, a guard saw a look of anger on his face after seeing Sarutobi faint, and then he held a kunai and attacked Naraku directly. Buff. The next moment, blood spattered, and the man was seen covering his neck and falling towards the ground. A kunai appeared in Naraku's hand, and a dark red streak could be seen at the front of the kunai. After finishing dealing with this person, Naraku raised his head and cast his gaze forward, where Naraku saw several silhouettes from behind, which were the daimyo who had just left. Art fire escape ho fireball. Suddenly, several loud shouts came, and then Naraku saw many red lights rising around him. It was the guards of the Sarutobi clan who finally decided to take action. Although they were still a little afraid, the situation forced them to worry too much. Boom, boom. More than a dozen fireballs composed of red flames blasted hard at Naraku from all directions, and almost instantly his body was submerged in a sea of fire. The guards looked happy when they saw this. Just when they thought Naraku had been severely injured, a red-haired figure walked out of the sea of fire unharmed. It was Naraku. I saw that his face was calm at this time, and there was no wound on his body. The flames surrounding him were like animals encountering natural enemies, and they did not dare to get close to him. But if you look carefully, you will find that there is a transparent red light mask around Naraku. It is this light mask that isolates the surrounding flames. The crimson mask is a ninjutsu that Naraku has recently developed. It continuously compresses the fire attribute chakra and then releases it from the body. Then, it uses some special means to surround the compressed chakra. My whole body. Eventually something like a protective shield was formed. This ninjutsu, Naraku, has just been developed. At present, it seems that the defensive ability is not strong. It can only withstand some fire attribute energy attacks, but it is still far behind in other aspects. However, Naraku believes that the potential of this ninjutsu is huge. It is a growth type ninjutsu that is not weaker than the Rasengan. It is currently only in its first stage. Although it is only the first stage, there is still no problem in resisting the attacks of these people. You didn't get any harm at all. When the guards around him saw the intact Naraku, there was a look of shock on their faces, but they soon calmed down, and the guard team of more than a dozen people began to move quickly, and once again launched an offensive against Naraku from all sides. Chapter 272. The Daimyo's Plan. Inside the damning mansion, a not-so-fierce war was breaking out in the usually peaceful damning mansion. A dozen guards are launching a crazy offensive against Naraku, and they can be assigned to guard the daimyo. The strength of these guards is not weak, and each one has the strength of a jounin. Among the lonely Sarutobi clan, they are all the elite among the elite. But even so, the gap between jounin and cage level powerhouse is still too big. What's more, Naraku is now more than cage level. He didn't even open his Sharingan, but in just 2 minutes, more than a dozen guards fell to the ground. The originally clean ground visible to the naked eye was now covered with bright red blood. Naraku himself doesn't have much hatred for the Sarutobi clan. He has a clear hatred. He just has a problem with the third generation, but now the third generation has paid the price he deserves. In line with the principle that, if others do not offend me, I will not offend others. If these people from the Sarutobi clan did not attack him today and honestly handed over the daimyo, then Naraku might not do anything to them. Now, Naraku has no mercy for those who are looking for death. After more than 10 years of living in the ninja world, he has long seen the cruelty of this world. If his strength is not as good as these people today, then those who are lying on the ground now, maybe it's him. After all the guards were eliminated, Naraku closed his eyes and sensed the chakra fluctuations around him. Found it. The next moment, Naraku opened his eyes suddenly, and he sensed the position of the daimyo. Then he didn't hesitate and chased towards the place where the daimyo left in a flash. At this time, the daimyo was in a temple-like building. It could be seen that besides the 2 guards, there were several other figures beside him. Daimyo-sama, please rest assured. As your guardian 12 ninja, we will ensure your safety. In front of the daimyo, a man with a resolute face spoke. It was easy to hear that his tone was full of confidence. His name is Kazuma, and he is one of the 12 guardian ninjas. Standing next to him was a young man with beards on his cheeks. It was a small point compared to Kazuma's confidence. Asuma's face looked a little ugly at this time. As a child who grew up in Konoha village, Naraku's name was not unfamiliar to him. A few years ago, Naraku, who was only a teenager at the time, killed Danzo, even severely injured his father, and gained cage level strength. As the son of the 3rd generation, Asuma knows better than anyone present what kind of combat power a shadow level warrior possesses. After all, his father is a shadow level warrior. Although they guard the 12 ninjas, each of them has considerable combat power, but don't say that there are only 6 of them. Kazuma, Jalu, Xingdao, Fengma, and Bijin. Even if all 12 of them are here, there was no way he could stop Naraku. Asuma's face changed as he understood the importance of the matter. He couldn't think of anything that could avoid this disaster. Uzumaki Naraku, Daimyo. But, at this moment, Asuma seemed to suddenly think of something. He quickly stood up and gave the Daimyo an unusual look. The Daimyo, who understood Asuma's meaning, nodded, and then Asuma came forward and whispered a few times in the Daimyo's ear. After listening to Asuma's words, the Daimyo's face turned bright and dark. In fact, he, who had been in a high position all year round, also realized something at this time. Naraku's arrival was simply because he gave Tsunade the letter of dismissal and wanted to remove her from the position of Hokage. If he relents now and agrees to continue to let Tsunade serve as Hokage, then Naraku will let him go. After careful consideration in his mind, the Daimyo finally agreed with the idea, but he looked up at Kazuma and the others who were guarding him. A cold light flashed deep in the Daimyo's eyes. Regarding Kazuma and the others, the Daimyo had already heard something. In order to ensure his own safety, the Daimyo quietly had a plan in his mind. Swish. Suddenly, a figure flashed out and appeared in the temple. It was Naraku. These people are. Naraku came here and looked around, carefully looking at Kazuma and the others, and paused slightly when his eyes fell on Asuma. At this time, Naraku had already guessed the identities of these people, the 12 guardian ninjas of the Fire Country. It's just that Naraku doesn't know why there are so few people. Only half of the 12 ninja are here now. Normally, there has been no internal fighting among the 12 ninjas currently guarding them, and all the members should be together. However, Naraku didn't think much about it. He was just protecting the 12 ninjas, and he didn't care at all whether they were all present or not. It's nothing more than moving your hands a few more times, Naraku. At this moment, a figure stood in front of Naraku. It was Asuma. The Daimyo is the leader of the Fire Nation. He cannot have any accidents. I hope that for the sake of the Fire Nation, you need to teach me what I do. Just when Asuma was saying something earnestly, Naraku interrupted him directly. Naraku wasn't very familiar with Asuma, and even in the same village, they only met him a few times. What's more, Naraku has an unshakable responsibility for why the Sarutobi clan has come to this point. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is the mastermind. Therefore, the two have long been on opposite sides, and they will never show mercy to their enemy Naraku. Even if he killed Asuma here today, who could do anything to him? Asuma, what nonsense are you talking to him? If you dare to hurt the Daimyo, no matter who you are, you will have to pay the price. At this moment, a cold shout came from behind Asuma, and it was the person who spoke in horses at this moment. He was holding a kunai, and there was a large amount of chakra surging in his slightly tense body, as if a cheetah was ready to hunt. That's Asuma. Our duty as guardian nin is to protect the safety of the Daimyo. Even if an enemy comes, just take action. Another person stood up, and he had already started to form seals with his hands raised. Wind escape, a big breakthrough. The man who had completed the seal opened his mouth and spit out a ball of fierce wind. The next moment, the wind roared and blew towards Naraku. Too long spear. At the same time, there was another person who launched the ninjutsu with him. The ground under Naraku's feet began to shake violently, and instantly a spike made of hard rock emerged from the ground and stabbed at Naraku's body. There was a strong wind blowing from above, and earth thorns came out from below. Facing both attacks at the same time, Naraku's face was dull, and a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes. With his current strength, this level of ninjutsu is unable to cause any harm to him. Chapter 273, Kick to Death a Jonin. Kazuma, you guys. After seeing Kazuma and others attacking Naraku, Asuma's expression changed instantly, and a look of panic appeared on his face. Then he turned to look at the Daimyo behind him, praying that he could bow his head to Naraku, so that only in this way could the rest of them have a chance to survive. However, at this time, the Daimyo was supported by the two guards and quickly retreated towards the rear, putting some distance between him and them. Facing Asuma's gaze, he may not have noticed it, so he did not give him a reply. Boom. At this moment, there was a loud noise on the field, and the strong wind bombarded Naraku on the ground. The huge impact set off a puff of smoke. Just when everyone thought Naraku had been hit, a figure suddenly flashed out and appeared in front of one person instantly. It was Naraku. At this time, he seemed to be intact, without any harm at all. Boom. Naraku's speed was extremely fast. Before the man could react, he had already kicked him in the chest. In an instant, a figure flew backwards at high speed. Boom. The man who was kicked hit the wall of the temple. The huge force caused the rock wall to be filled with cracks. Then the man's body fell directly to the ground without making any sound. Naraku's actions shocked everyone. Whether it was Kazuma or Asuma, with the strength of Jounin, they would more or less master some basic sensory ninjutsu. At this time, they sensed that Xingdao, the man who was kicked by Naraku, had no trace of life on his body, just like a dead person. For Kazuma and others, as ninjas, they have long been used to life and death, and each of their hands was stained with countless blood, but they were still shocked by Naraku's operation. Hashito, although his strength is not outstanding among the 12 guardian ninjas, he still has the strength of a Jounin, but now that he has the strength of a Jounin, he was kicked to death. Kicking a Jounin to death would be a bit unacceptable to anyone who would say such a thing. In fact, what they didn't know was that although the kick Naraku just kicked seemed ordinary, he had actually used his strange power. Otherwise, how could a normal kick kill a Jounin? If you look carefully, you will find that a large piece of Crossing Dao's chest has collapsed, and it is still the left chest. His heart has been completely destroyed. Cage-level strongman, Kazuma, who looked frightened, secretly thought in his heart, and then without any hesitation, he turned around and ran towards the other side, trying to escape from here. Although the remaining Dalu, Dongma, and Bijin didn't leave, there was also a hint of panic on their faces. I want to leave, haha, I'm really delusional. Looking at Kazuma running away quickly, Naraku sneered in his heart, then stretched out his right hand and formed a seal, shadow, clone technique, boom, a burst of white smoke appeared, and then a figure disappeared after the smoke dissipated. After sending shadow clones to chase Kazuma, Naraku's eyes looked around and fell on the remaining people. A sharp light appeared in Naraku's eyes, and then his figure flashed, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Belly General. Without hesitation, chakra instantly gathered on his legs, and then he slammed it with a special method burst out. Facing Naraku's sudden attack, Bijin looked frightened at this time. In order to save his life, he reacted quickly. Chakra surged on his body, and then he quickly formed a mark. Substitute. Boom. After a loud noise, the same scene as before appeared. I saw Bijin's body flying backwards quickly, and also hit a wall. Although Bijin's reaction is very fast, no matter how fast he is, he cannot compare with Naraku. There is a huge difference in strength between the two, and it is impossible for Bijin to dodge his attack. Puff, Berry, Gen, who hit the wall, opened his mouth and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Then, like Crossing Dao, his body fell to the ground and gradually became silent. After kicking one person to death again, everyone else was shocked. They didn't dare to make any more moves, not even to run away. He's gotten stronger again, Asuma laughed bitterly in his mind. He was a few years older than Naraku, but his strength was beyond his reach. Asuma turned his head and once again set his sights on the Daimyo point, but the Daimyo ignored him again. Kill the 12 guardian ninjas. If you are really loyal to me, then go ahead and die. I only need the 6 guardian ninjas, the Daimyo said in his heart. In order to strengthen his own armed strength, he established the 12 guardian ninja. At the beginning, the situation was indeed not bad. The 12 guardian ninja did help him do a lot of things, and once stopped his assassins, but as time went by, the Daimyo gradually found that his control over these guardian ninja was not enough. Coupled with the increasing fame of the 12 guardian ninja, the Daimyo felt that they were a threat to his power, which is why the current scene happened. He wanted to use Naraku's hand to clear out some of the guardian nin, so that he could control them more easily. As for Naraku, the Daimyo is ready to bow to him temporarily. As long as he survives the immediate crisis, he will have a plan to deal with Konoha village in the future. But at this moment, the Daimyo suddenly felt that there was a figure in front of him. It was Naraku. Hello, Daimyo-sama. The corners of Naraku's mouth raised slightly, and he looked at the Daimyo with a half smile. How did you? Looking at Naraku who appeared in front of him instantly, the Daimyo instantly became nervous. He turned to look at the guards on the side, as well as Dillo and the others, but to his disappointment, these people all stood there stupidly, as if they did not see that his Daimyo was in danger. In fact, it wasn't that Chiraku and the others didn't care about the life and death of the daimyo, but that they were intimidated by Naraku's strength. Jalu and the others knew very well that, even if they tried their best to fight Naraku now, they would not be able to stop the other party's footsteps, and the reason why they chose to let it go was because they believed that it was impossible for Naraku to kill the daimyo. After all, the current daimyo is the supreme leader of the Fire Country. If he is killed rashly, the entire Fire Country may be in chaos. In fact, Jalu and the others guessed correctly that Naraku had no intention of killing the daimyo, at least not yet. Looking at the frightened daimyo in front of him, Naraku really couldn't figure out what to do in this cold, cruel ninja world where strength was respected. How could the Fire Nation, as the most powerful nation, choose such a useless coward as its supreme leader? It's really strange. Chapter 274. The old guy really doesn't make people worry. I agree to let Godei continue to serve as Hokage. Looking at the red-haired boy standing in front of him, the daimyo no longer cared about any face at this time, and directly compromised with Naraku. He thought that, as long as he compromised with Naraku, the other party would let him go, but he might not have noticed that Naraku's eyes were full of disdain at this time. Naraku was very disappointed with the daimyo. It was really disappointing that the top leader of a country was such a spineless person. Naraku shook his head slightly with disdain. But at this moment, he seemed to notice something, and his body moved slightly, and his whole body moved 2 steps towards his left side. Guy. In an instant, a sound broke through the air, and a figure holding 2 special weapons appeared at the place where Naraku was just standing. The man with a beard and a light blooming on the weapon in his hand was Asuma. He just wanted to take advantage of Naraku's unpreparedness and launch an attack on him, but what he didn't expect was that Naraku's perception was so powerful that he could perfectly dodge his attack, even if his back was turned to him. Wind escape, kill and gale. Asuma, who had already chosen to take action, knew that there was no turning back, so he could only grit his teeth and continue to attack Naraku. The blue light surged in his hand, and then 2 blades made of chakra attached to his hand. Without hesitation, he quickly turned around and struck Naraku with a sharp chakra knife. Buff. But at this moment, a piece of red blood splashed, and Asuma felt a sudden pain in his chest, and then a sense of powerlessness came, and the chakra knife that was swung forward slowly dissipated. Asuma used his last bit of strength to look down, and saw a transparent spear inserted into his chest. The spear looked extremely sharp, and even penetrated directly through his right chest. The huge pain and the loss of a large amount of blood made Asuma's body unable to support it any longer, and he fell to the ground with a thud. Naraku's eyes were cold and devoid of any mercy. Naraku, who was holding the invisible spear, slowly opened his palm, and then the spear formed by wind energy dissipated. The wind gun is a ninjutsu created by Naraku, based on Kakashi's Chidori spear. It is no less powerful than it. The Chidori spear has strong penetrating ability and a sense of paralysis. The wind gun is not weaker than the former in terms of penetrating ability. Although it does not have the paralysis ability of the thunder attribute, it has the tearing ability of the wind attribute, just like Asuma, who was just hit by the wind gun. If Naraku wanted to, he could have killed him directly just now, but now he still had some things to figure out, so Asuma couldn't die yet. After Asuma was severely injured, apart from the 2 guards, only Chilo and Fengma were left on the daimyo side. Although Asuma's courage touched the 2 of them, Naraku's strong strength made them lose all will to fight, and they had no courage to attack Naraku. Not paying attention to the remaining people, Naraku shifted his gaze from Asuma to the daimyo again. At the same time, his eyes turned scarlet, and 3 black magatama slowly flowed in his eyes at the same time. A burst of eye power emanated from his body. In an instant, the daimyo's trembling eyes became distracted, and he lost consciousness until a few seconds later, his body fell to the ground with a thud, and Naraku slowly closed his eyes. It is indeed you, the Sarutobi clan. Just now, he used Jinjutsu to obtain some important information from the daimyo's mind, including the matter about the daimyo sending a letter of termination to Tsunade. In fact, although the daimyo had great opinions on the 5th Hokage, Tsunade, he also knew in his heart that, although he was the supreme leader of the Fire Country, but if there is really too much quarrel with Tsunade, who is the Hokage, it will not do him any good. After all, The development of a country cannot be separated from the support of Shinobi Village Point, and now the reason why the daimyo has the courage to directly send the letter of dismissal to Tsunade is because he secretly has the support of the Sarutobi clan. Of course, although the power of the Sarutobi clan is not weak, it is completely incomparable with behemoths like Konoha Village. However, there is a very special being among the Sarutobi clan point, that is Sarutobi Hiruzen, the third Hokage. As a former Hokage, although he has now left the village, he has even done many things that are detrimental to the village point, but on the surface, the third Hokage is still the Hokage of the village. In the eyes of some people in the village, who don't know the specific situation, he is still the third Hokage who dedicated half his life to the village point. One wanted to regain the power he had lost, and the other wanted to stabilize his political power, so the two hit it off, and prepared to join forces to oust Tsunade from the position of the fifth Hokage point. The daimyo's resignation letter is only the first step of their plan, and there will be many subsequent methods against Tsunade in the Leaf Village. What the daimyo didn't expect was that the first step of the plan had already failed. Haha, the old guy is really annoying, Naraku sneered in his heart. Looking at the daimyo lying on the ground, a sharp light flashed in his eyes. But in the end, Naraku restrained himself and decided to temporarily keep the daimyo alive to facilitate his subsequent plans. It's just that the daimyo still has value and can be avoided, but the other people present have no value. Naraku's eyes trembled, and a killing intent burst out of him. No, run away. At this moment, Delu's face suddenly changed when he noticed Naraku's murderous intent. Without any hesitation, he turned around and fled out of the temple, but a red-haired figure blocked his path. Way to go point. At the same time, a figure appeared in front of Dangma and the two guards. They were all shadow clones of Naraku. At this time, Naraku's body was still standing in place. Come and greet us, kill with 1,000 hands. Faced with the interception of the shadow clone, Delu did not choose to sit still and wait for death point. After quickly forming a seal with his hands, a pale golden shadow appeared behind him. The golden shadow had its hands clasped together, and there were dozens of arms behind it. It looked like 1,000 armed Avalokitesvara point. Immediately under the control of Delu, these fists made of golden light all rushed towards the shadow clone in front of him. The speed of the fists caused a roar in the air. Swish. Facing the offensive of the golden fist, the shadow clone did not choose to resist and dodge away. Seeing this scene, a golden light flashed in Delu's eyes, and then he took advantage of this opportunity to quickly surge towards the outside of the temple and disappeared here in the blink of an eye. Chapter 275. Inoki joins forces with the third generation. Inside the temple, except for Delu who escaped, the two guards and the frozen horse were all eliminated by the shadow clones, and the place fell silent instantly. Delu, a move similar to the 1,000-armed Buddha of the first generation. This is the backup move of the second generation, Naraku murmured. Just after Chilo used that ninjutsu move, Naraku immediately recognized that this move was very similar to the Senju Buddha, and instantly he thought of the Senju clan that had almost completely disappeared from the village point. He suspected that Delu had the blood of the Senju clan and was probably a branch of the Senju clan who had changed their names. That's why he held back just now and let the other party leave point. After all, if Chilo is really a branch member of the Senju clan, then for Tsunade's sake, it doesn't matter if Naraku spares his life point. Of course, this is also because Delu has not done anything extraordinary. Otherwise, even if he is really a member of the Senju clan, Naraku may not let him go. After Naraku was about to return to the village, he asked Tsunade about the reason for the disappearance of the Senju clan. He was very curious about this question in his previous life. Daimyo, the third generation. Haha, let's completely eliminate these two hidden dangers of you this time, Naraku murmured softly as he looked at Asuma and the daimyo who fell on the ground. Then he found a suitable seat in the temple and sat down. He was going to wait for someone here, an old guy. It's the third generation. Naraku believes that the third generation will definitely come over. Even if he doesn't care about the daimyo who is his ally, but Asuma is here, Naraku believes that the third generation will definitely come over. It was precisely in order to attract the third generation that Naraku didn't kill Asuma just now. In order to prevent Asuma from bleeding to death, He had simply stopped the bleeding just now. Point in this way, Naraku here waited until the afternoon. It was not until the sun was about to set that he sensed someone approaching, and there were two of them. Naraku narrowed his eyes slightly, and then with him as the center, a strange energy spread in all directions. Kaguya's inner eye opened. Almost instantly, all energy fluctuations within a 10-mile radius were sensed by Naraku. Within the scope of his perception, there were two powerful auras approaching here quickly. One of the auras was relatively familiar. Naraku knew it was the third generation. As for the other aura, although it was a bit unfamiliar, it was extremely powerful. Who is the one? Naraku frowned. He couldn't imagine what kind of help the current third generation could ask for. From his perception, he found that the person didn't look like anyone else in Akatsuki Point. Although he couldn't think of the identity of the other person, Naraku didn't think much about it. He slowly stood up from the ground and walked towards the outside of the temple. He wanted to meet this troublesome old guy. Point. Just when Naraku walked out of the temple, two figures in black robes appeared in his sight. Point. One of the two people is thin and the other is short. Looking at his height alone, this person is the same as a 10-year-old child. Point. However, Naraku would not really regard him as a child. At this time, he was closer to the two of them, and he could sense the strong aura of this person, which was a level stronger than the third generation next to him. Could it be? Melo's eyes trembled, and there was a vague suspicion in his heart. He was very surprised. He didn't expect that Sendai could invite this person over. Haha, Lord Tsuchikage, the third generation, suddenly appeared in the territory of the Fire Country. Do you want to provoke a war between the Fire Country and the Earth Country? Naraku's face turned cold, and he said to the short man in a questioning tone. Just now, Naraku carefully recalled in his mind that, although there are many short people in the entire ninja world, there are not many people who are not tall and very strong, and the third Tsuchikage is one of the representatives. Sexual characters. That's why Naraku thought that the person in front of him was the third Tsuchikage. Haha, Uzumaki Naraku is worthy of being the one who can defeat the Reikage guy. Such observation skills are really good. A slightly hoarse voice sounded on the field, and the person who spoke was a small man in black robes. Then he reached out and took off the black robe that was covering his face, and then a familiar figure appeared in front of Naraku. Point. Short in stature and with a big nose in the middle of his face. He is the third Tsuchikage, known as the Two-Scale Zenoki. He is the longest lived Kage in the original work. Point. Although he had already made some guesses in his mind, Naraku was still a little surprised when Inoki's identity was confirmed. He never expected that the third generation could collude with that Tsuchikage. Normally, today's third generation has no resources to hire the third generation Tsuchikage, but now, although he didn't understand, Naraku didn't think much about it. His main task now was to defeat the two old guys in front of him. Point. Naraku is quite clear about the third generation's strength. It is no exaggeration to say that, even though the third generation's strength has improved now, he is still confident that he can solve it easily. But Inoki is different. He has mastered the power that exceeds the limits of blood successors. Blood successors are eliminated, and dust escapes. Although Naraku has never seen the power of dust release, he still does not dare to be careless at all. You must know that Kakashi, who has mastered the Flying Thunder God technique before, was defeated by this old guy. Point. After revealing his true identity, Inoki stopped pretending and lifted his feet directly off the ground, floating into the air like a feather. Naraku's eyes trembled slightly when he saw this. We can't let him successfully lift off, he secretly thought to himself, then quickly stretched out his hands and waved them slowly in the air. Noisy. Noisy. A burst of dense thunder attribute energy instantly emerged in the air and then turned into dozens of long blow arrows in the air. Thunder arrow. Naraku murmured, and then all these thunder arrows rushed forward quickly, targeting Inoki in the sky. Point. Call out. Call out. Call out. In an instant, there was a sound of piercing the air, and the thunder arrows formed by lightning tore through the air, and in the blink of an eye they were in front of the third Tsuchikage. Wind escape. Sweep the wind. But at this moment, a hoarse voice sounded, and then a thick iron rod appeared and swept into the air. In an instant, a fierce wind appeared and blew away all the thunder arrows. It was Sendai who took action. At this time, he had taken off his black robe, revealing a black outfit point, and when Naraku's eyes fell on the third generation's face, his pupils condensed slightly, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Looking at the middle-aged man in front of him holding an iron rod, Naraku couldn't believe that he was the original third generation who had entered his 6th year. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.